Good evening, and welcome to Pynchon Pals, a podcast about finally reading Thomas Pynchon. My name is Patrick Fiorilli, and I'm joined, as always, by Andrew Tillett.
Hello, everybody.
And Dury Long.
Good evening.
Up at the top, we'd like to thank our supporters at patreon.com/PynchonPals, where you can sign up for $5 a month to hear exclusive bonus episodes like Q&As or our discussion of The Master or upcoming mystery film that we are now deciding that we'll probably talk about for what comes after March, April, for April's monthly bonus episode. So if that sounds like stuff that you might be interested in, or you'd just like to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/PynchonPals. On tonight's episode, we are beginning our discussion of Gravity's Rainbow. The big one, the looming monolith, has now appeared before us. We are talking about sections 1.1 to 1.9, or roughly the first 60 pages if you've got the Penguin, at least the US edition of the Penguin Deluxe edition. And we are all reading this book for the very first time. Now, we are each of us 2 Pynchon books deep. You can go back and listen to our episodes of V and The Crying Blot 49. If you have never heard of us before or listened before, welcome. You are, this is as good a time as any to jump on, I suppose. Although we might make a bunch of inside jokes about a guy named Herbert Stencil or a little girl who's obsessed with fossils, or do we have any good inside jokes from
Arnold Snarb?
Arnold Snarb. Yeah, if you want to know what Arnold Snarb is all about, go back and listen to those earlier episodes. But welcome aboard if this is your first journey with us at Pynchon Pals. As like a little introduction, we each are coming to this from places of experience and expertise, although not necessarily with Thomas Pynchon, but the vibe of this show is that we are, 3 close friends. 2 of us, in fact, are married. You can figure out who is who. That's a little clue that longtime listeners will probably have picked up on. But we are also all good friends doing a read-along sort of book clubby type discussion here. I come at Pynchon from a little bit of a background of like literary theory and media theory. That's sort of my professional training. I don't know if y'all want to introduce sort of where you're coming from disciplinarily or otherwise.
I come from the land of communication and computers, which is relating more and more to Pynchon as we proceed through these works. So.
As I promised you several months ago, it would.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I'm an engineer at NASA, so I'm this von Braun quote hit closer to home than I would like it to.
This is your book, Andrew. Your time has come.
And things are hitting close to home in London in 1944, where we start into the narrative of Gravity's Rainbow here. But before we get there, on the last episode, we teased an email that we got in that we will now turn to in earnest. We only briefly touched on it last time in relation to one of the things the email talks about. Andrew, do you have that pulled up?
Yep. I forgot that I was supposed to edit it a little bit while you were doing that intro, and I was just listening to you talk. So I'm just going to free associate edit. This is from Matt. Hi, Paranoid Pals. Enjoying this show so far. I'm taking the opportunity to reread Pynchon's books along with your show. Well, so far. Very interesting to hear people discover Pynchon in chronological order. I think you'll be rewarded in the end, and a great way to track his development as a writer. I wonder how long it will take you to get through the next 4 books. I think he sent this while we were on the second book, so I'm not sure if he means the first 5 or just the first 4 total. You're in for a wild ride. They're the most challenging, dense, and deeply developed the themes Pynchon is fleshing out in the first 2 books. I think one of them is my favorite book by any author, 3,000 pages or so of paranoid fun and subpar songs. Let the books dictate your schedule. Don't force your schedule on the books. That's my best advice, which is worth nothing. Here is more advice worth nothing. I should have skipped that last sentence. Sorry, Matt. Gravity's Rainbow is dedicated to Richard Farina. I would do a little research into him if you wanted to try and understand Pynchon. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but Pynchon worked at Boeing when he was writing V out of the Navy. Maybe Yo-Yo-Dyne is loosely based on Boeing? I think the answer to that is yes. And then finally, in my day-to-day life, I do not meet a single person who knows who Thomas Pynchon is. Thanks for providing some conversation and content so I can pretend to have someone to talk about the books. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. We are more than excited to talk about the books with you. I like the advice about let the books dictate your schedule. I feel like I'm having a hard time. I've been very busy at work recently, and I've been having a hard time letting the schedule dictate the reading of the books because there's a lot to dig into here. And I feel like some of these might need a read and a reread and a deeper dive on occasion.
Yeah, I think for me, well, I guess for the listeners, this isn't a spoiler. We're recording this like 4 days after we recorded the final episode for Lot 49. And you know those like little trains they have at the mall the kids are in, and there's like a conductor, but the train's only like 2.5 feet tall. It kind of feels like
I hated those things as a kid because I would try to sneak into the conductor's cabin, and I was like, it's a little train. Obviously, I, a little kid, should be the one piloting the train. And then I got yelled at least once or twice and devoted my life to despising them. But go on.
I'm in shock that I've never heard such a quintessential Patrick story.
It's iconic, yeah.
It kind of feels like we just jumped out of the way of one of those that has snuck up on us, and then having jumped out of the way, have been plowed down by a full-blown locomotive.
I think that's fair. Patrick said, I think in the last episode, that the crying of Lot 49 accelerated and decelerated more smoothly than V. And I think Thomas Pynchon just hit the gas pedal to the metal for Gravity's Rainbow, and we're just in full acceleration. There's no deceleration happening.
Talking about acceleration.
There's a lot to talk about acceleration. Are we segueing into the rocket?
Are we segueing into the rocket?
I didn't kind of feel like I cut you off, Patrick, but yeah, I just thought it was right there. The writing was on the wall.
Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say. So yeah, that was a great segue, Andrew. To the rocket. I want to pull out just one more thing. Matt, I know we are just like tearing your email apart by reading it in a bunch of little chunks. But you do make a good point here, Matt, that I want to bring up. Where you have a question, Yo-Yo-Dyne, how does Yo-Yo-Dyne represent them, quote unquote? In my rereading of V, this quote from page 67, Stencil's second impersonation, struck me about Yusuf, the servant. What was he, Yusuf, if not a public servant? Was he human? Before he'd embraced political nihilism, certainly. But as a servant here, tonight, for them, he might as well be a fixture on the wall. I'm curious to know how you think this quote applies to his work as you go forward. I think there's a lot of thems in Gravity's Rainbow, and I'm going to assume that Matt probably knew this when sending in this email just before we launched into it. But one of the thems that we encounter, and I think we've got a couple more to look at as we go on this evening in our conversation, are the Germans, who are the them launching the rockets overseas to hit London. A screaming comes across the sky, but these rockets don't scream. What do we think about one of the most famous opening lines in American literature?
It's strong.
It's strong. I like it. Yeah. I do feel like there's this pervasive fear throughout what we've read so far of Gravity's Rainbow, of the rocket that you can't hear. Sort of an effect without warning.
Yeah, so did either of y'all look up or know offhand the deal with like the V2 rockets and the German Nazi engineering that went into them? Did y'all do any digging?
You explained it to me the other day, so I didn't feel the need to look it up after that.
I knew a little bit, but I brushed up on the Wikipedia page as well.
What I really want to do is find, like, we don't have cable, because who does? But what I really want is like a 3-hour block of History Channel episodes about, like, the secrets of Nazi engineering.
I would love to do that for a Patreon episode. I would also love to watch any World War II documentaries that we feel might be relevant to understanding Gravity's Rainbow. I love a historical documentary.
There's got to be something that's available, like, on public domain on YouTube that's like an old BBC documentary or something, but we'll dig into it.
I can dig into that.
Suffice it to say up at the top that the sort of big difference, as is hammered home again and again in these first opening sections, between the V2 rockets that are newly being launched at England versus the V1 rockets that people are more familiar with, is that the V1 rockets, as you can tell by their nickname Doodlebugs, make a big loud sound as they go through the air. And then so long as you heard that sound, you were pretty safe because the rocket was going over your head. The problem arises when the sound cuts out, because that means that the engine has stopped and it's about to come crashing down. And I guess I said V1 rocket there, but technically they are like cruise missiles or flying bombs, which is in distinction to the V2 rocket, which by many accounts is the first human-made object to ever enter space. It comes crashing down to Earth from being launched faster than the speed of sound, which means that the impact happens before you ever hear it coming. Much like a bullet, as one character later tries to console another character in these chapters, but in pointed opposition, to use another one of this book's favorite words thus far, to the earlier V1 cruise missiles.
Yeah, the sort of irony that they hit home on in the first couple sections of this is that, I guess, part of what is scary about the V2 is the sound that it's making. But if you can hear the sound, then you're not the target of the rocket.
I have seen some folks describe that the screaming coming across the sky, therefore, has a couple of different meanings. In that there is, there's the one meaning of it's the screaming of the rocket that you couldn't actually hear if you were the rocket's target, but it's also the screaming of, like, the air raid sirens, and of course there is the sort of like human vocal screaming that you might imagine going on during this sort of chaotic evacuation that we are privy to, that begins this nightmare that starts the book.
Did you want to lead us in with we can't really do chapter summaries anymore because this book tragically has no chapters, but it does have these little squares that go across the page, at least in the Penguin Classics version, that breaks up the sections.
Oh, the squares are in all the maybe not all the versions, but in most of the versions, the squares are there, and a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about the squares.
About the squares. Oh, interesting.
Just for the record, the Wikipedia page for Gravity's Rainbow refers to these as episodes, not sections. And I like episodes more, so I think we should go with episodes.
That gets confusing because we also have episodes. We're on, like, episode 14 where we're covering episodes 1 point whatever
Well, when we, like, write it out, we can just be like 1.1 to 1.9, whatever we did for this one. But, like, when we're talking about it, we should be like, in this episode.
Yeah. The one where Joey dates Rachel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Jessica and Roger, but that was close.
Yeah.
So we're going to be giving these some numbers, but the numbers you'll just have to count, I guess.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah, many people say that the little squares resemble the little sockets in a film strip.
Oh, which maybe belies the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
And, scenes could be. Well, the scenes gets confusing because even in these episodes, we're jumping. We're jumping all which ways.
I really feel like you should really get to the section,
the
episode,
Patrick summary,
the episode summary. Patrick and chapter have like an odd
Assonance?
assonance. Yes. That when I start to say one, the other one comes out.
All right, I'm going to read my Patrick chapter episode section summary for 1.1. Captain Jeffrey Pirate Prentice wakes up from a dream of devastation and evacuation to pick bananas. We're in London, 1944. The Germans have begun launching their V-2 rockets, which travel faster than the speed of sound. No screaming across the sky. That's my summary.
Clever.
These are going to be much shorter than some of the chapter summaries I've done for V or Lot 49.
We're going to sprinkle them in throughout. It's going to be
Yeah.
It's sort of like a Spanish tapas situation for chapter summaries. Better for sharing.
I felt like in V, Pynchon experimented a little bit with these lengthy sentences that kind of bleed one into the next. And then I felt like they grew in prevalence in The Crying of Lot 49. And I feel like this entire book is sort of nearly one sentence.
There's a couple
little
of
bit.
Not literally, but I do feel like we keep like jumping and like each paragraph is almost a sentence. Like this is nearing, there's not a lot of zooming out. Like we're in it. Does that make sense?
There's a couple of times in this 60 pages where there's just like a list of items that is nearly a page long. I don't know if there's a word for when your list is way too long and shouldn't be one sentence, but he hits it. There's
a lot of
breakfasts,
ellipses.
those dirty desks. A lot of ellipses.
This feels much closer to like a stream of consciousness than the other books have felt.
I think Lot 49 gestures in that direction a few times, but I think you're right. The other thing that is immediately notable is that this book is in like present tense.
Present tense, and we'll get to this later, but there's also some like interesting perspective shifting that goes on between like the third person description of what's happening, and then at one point like so they're describing the characters, but then at one point later on there's a switch to like referring to the reader ? As like you. We'll get to that when it happens, but I thought there was some interesting things going on in the narration.
Yeah, all over this book, I think there's a lot of this, a word I didn't remember the first time or a phrase I didn't remember the first time I used it on the show, but free indirect discourse, where sort of a narratorial voice slips into the voice of a character briefly and then jumps back out of it.
Yeah, so there's that, and then also it switches to, I mean, I guess it's in the narratorial voice, but it starts referring to the reader as like you.
Yeah.
Or it puts the reader in the story later on, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's also a very talky form of narration where there's a lot of asides, and I think even some of those yous are deployed in the way that we casually use you in English to mean like a generalized person, like these aren't your average ordinary rockets, but like that you is not necessarily your average ordinary rockets. It's like the impersonal you, I guess is what it might be called linguistically. That's all over here.
Yeah.
The density of the writing also like goes through sort of similar shifts where you get these sort of long multi-page descriptions of sort of what would otherwise be like a small event, which I think is something we've seen several times now through the first two Pynchon books that we've read, and then you will just very abruptly be in sort of Hemingway-esque short sentences, just giving you very bare bones facts about like what a character is or is doing, and then you go right back into these long sections of prose in a way that I think is sort of like you're sort of driving a race car, it feels like. And you sort of have to deaccelerate hard into a corner and then accelerate hard. Even like driving up like a mountain maybe is maybe an apt description for how it feels to read this book. Where you're sort of doing the switchbacks and you sort of have to hit a very slow point on the corner, then you accelerate to keep going up the mountain.
Yeah, except there's no guardrails here. So one wrong turn and you are careening off the mountain.
You can't see
Yeah,
the
and then
top.
you have to go back and reread.
You go back and reread. We've still not really talked about what happens in this opening. There's an evacuation from catastrophe. But the evacuation proceeds in a sort of surrealist, dreamlike mode, where they're in these carriages and they're on a road, but perhaps the road is also on train tracks and things are narrowing. The countryside is shifting. There's all of these like terrible faces of people who are being evacuated alongside the sort of perspective character. There is maybe a self-reflexive moment here where the narrator says, no, this is not a disentanglement from, but a progressive knotting into. And we continue sort of knotting into these perspectives as we realize that this terrible tableau is in fact the dream of one Jeffrey Pirate Prentice,
Who's staying in this house, a maisonette.
Maisonette.
That was a new word for me.
I think this word might just be more common in England.
Okay.
I should say we are
Kind of like a townhouse.
We are all U.S. Americans on this podcast, but we're doing our very best with all of the international allusions that Pynchon is working us through. Yeah, I think it sort of resembles what we would call a townhouse.
Okay. It's a bunch of guys staying there.
Boys, it's a frat house. It's the boys' crib. All of his
Thomas
military
Pynchon,
pals.
He loves a bunch of guys, a bunch of nasty guys.
It's all that time in the Navy. Just time spent with nasty guys. I assume. I've never been in the Navy. Maybe they're not nasty, but I can't imagine.
They just want everybody to think they're nasty, but they're actually really all upstanding, very clean cut. Yeah.
That guy who gave the quote about Thomas, I think like in the very first episode, we said that one of his Navy, someone who knew him in the Navy remembers him as going off to museums while they were going to homes of ill repose, and they were all at the museum, but he just needed to keep the illusion up.
A thing that jumped out to me reading this is that I've had this book on my shelf for a long time.
So the book finally came off the shelf is what jumped out at you?
Yeah, for one, the book itself. For two, I've definitely cracked open this book and like leafed through it on occasion over the years. And I've read maybe the first couple of pages. And especially in this Penguin Classics Deluxe edition, it's got a very bleak cover. There's like...
But it's beautiful. I love the cover art.
It's great. But it's like very...
For the first time. Best cover art we have had so far.
It's dark. There's a silhouette of the V2 rocket. There's London in flames on the background. A screaming comes across the sky. The thing that I never got to and that was really sort of jarring is that 2 pages later, we're learning about this guy who's picking bananas.
Yeah, on the top of their London townhouse, they have a banana greenhouse. And he's picking bananas for banana breakfast. It's
just like a beautiful... I was initially a little like apprehensive going into this book. Like, oh, this is the big one. We're about to get it. This podcast is about to get very serious. And obviously we've gone into some dark territory talking about Thomas Pynchon before. But the vibe going into these first couple pages was immediately not broken, but I felt like, I've come home again to Thomas Pynchon as soon as I got to the banana breakfast and like, oh yeah, I know what's up now.
Starting with this sort of very sad, slow section about this evacuation, and it just hits you with sort of the density of the prose. Yeah, your sort of experience, Patrick, of reading the first couple of pages is the digging for diamonds meme where the guy keeps turning around. And if you just get to page 5, you get some fun physical comedy with Teddy Blount falling off the second floor because there's no banister anymore. And yeah, the greenhouse with the bananas, and it's very Looney Tunes. We talked a lot about Looney Tunes in V, while we were reading V, and we're just back at it. The physical slapstick comedy is here to stay.
Yeah, you can really see there's like a springy, like balloon sound effect where Pirate kicks his bed underneath Teddy, who's about to fall off the stairs. It's good. Boing, you imagine Teddy going as he lands on the bed.
Can you imagine if boing was written on page 5 of this book?
I'm surprised it's not, honestly.
This is a digression, but I was in a meeting today. It was a Zoom call, and in my office, I have sort of a whiteboard behind my desk, and I was in an hour-long Zoom call, and maybe also one yesterday, before I noticed that there was a drawing of Kilroy on the whiteboard behind my head, like a very large drawing of Kilroy that somebody added.
Oh. Wait.
Somebody else drew Kilroy on my office whiteboard the other day.
Who could have done it?
Who knows?
How was that person who drew it supposed to know that it was your Zoom background?
It was my Zoom background. I think Kilroy's been in like 4 meetings that I've had this week.
That's fine.
It's fun.
No one's mentioned it.
That's fun.
And he's like very large, like the size of my head. Anyways, we're back. Patrick, I feel like you mentioned the other day that you were like, I'm worried that Gravity's Rainbow is not going to be funny. And I'm glad that your fears were assuaged.
Immediately.
I knew Thomas Pynchon is still funny. He's still here with his humor, the good names.
I knew I could trust
Pirate
Thomas.
Prentice.
Dury, I've got a question. On a recent trip we and some other of our friends took, I sat through an extended conversation you had about mulch and composting, and I wanted you to grade the compost that they have in this greenhouse, because we get a very in-depth description.
Yeah, it sounded really nice. I'm trying to find the segment where they talk about the compost.
It's at the top of page 6. I think the chapter starts on the bottom of page 5. It's nice that we all have the exact same copy. Now we can do this page number thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Top of page 6.
Yeah, it's the previous owners of the maisonette.
Okay,
yeah, there's such things as
the dead leaves, an unstomachable meal. Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, thrown or vomited there. I don't think you should put vomit in your compost. I think that's a hard no.
Why not?
Manure.
Tell me why not. Give me one good reason.
You don't want to. It doesn't always get hot enough to kill off the pathogens.
Oh.
So I don't know. I don't know if they're hot composting or not, but it it could carry some pathogens if someone was ill. They could be I mean, London is like a pretty ratty city. I would be a little hesitant about putting like meat and oils in my compost on the roof of my townhouse in London. But it seems to be working for them, because eventually they get unbelievable black topsoil in which anything could grow, which sounds like pretty good quality compost at the end. So.
There's also certain pharmaceutical plants that have developed frost hardiness up there on the roof, so that probably also helps the bananas taste good. A little bit of latent psychoactivity.
Yeah, like psychoactive compost. That's novel.
Oh, yeah, Pirate is famous. He makes a banana breakfast for the boys every morning, maybe, and it's kind of his thing. It's what he's known for. I would ask for
it every morning.
I got so hungry when reading about the banana breakfast.
If anyone's joining us for the first time now that we're reading GR, you've missed that for 6 months now, we've been recording all food and edible adjacent things mentioned into a cookbook. And here on pages 6 and 9, it's all cookbook.
This took the cake for me. I mean,
pancake.
I think you could have a whole cookbook just for the banana breakfast. There are so many different dishes with bananas in them.
This is also something I knew this. There was something about pancakes and Gravity's Rainbow I knew because I saw someone reference that someone talks about banana pancakes in one battle after another. And eagle-eyed viewers thought that might be a little subtle Pynchon reference.
I like that.
Outside of Vineland.
24-hour IHOP challenge. Eat pancakes, read Gravity's Rainbow.
There's a good blog that intersects with our own cookbook project loosely called Tom Pynchon's Liquor Cabinet that tries to put together all the cocktails from Thomas Pynchon's books.
Oh, yeah, I follow them on Instagram.
Yeah, and they do have a banana breakfast post that I'll link in the show notes because it's worth visualizing what some of this feast looks like.
Yeah, so while Prentice Pirate is...
Do we get Pirate Prentice, by the way? I had to look up this reference.
No, I did not get the reference.
It is a reference to the Gilbert and Sullivan musical, The Pirates of Penzance.
Oh, The Pirates of Penzance. I should have gotten that.
Yeah, I thought you, if anyone on this podcast would, it would be you. But the main character is accidentally, instead of becoming an apprentice to a pilot on like a merchant marine vessel, he becomes a pirate apprentice or a pirate prentice, which is the joke of this name. Very. And then Pirate Prentice in this book has some Gilbert and Sullivan-y songs associated with him already, so I'm sure we'll get more of those.
Oh boy, we will. But Pirate Prentice, I'm gonna have to work on my alliterative pronunciation. Pirate Prentice on the roof while picking bananas sees a rocket,
a V2?
A screaming,
a V2, yeah,
a V2 rocket.
Sees the contrail smoke.
Yeah, and kind of has this moment of panic where he's wondering if he should go alert everyone and sound the alarm. And he ends up just deciding, like, he's kind of hopeless and ends up just deciding to pick his bananas and then go back inside.
Yeah, there's three good short sentences like you were talking about, Andrew, of run out in the street, warn the others, pick bananas.
And he picks bananas. And I feel like that kind of captures a little bit of the vibe of the running theme of these rockets, which is that there's so little warning, there's so little control over where they land. It seems so random, and people are trying to make sense of it and predict where they're going to land or find a way to track them. But oftentimes, like, the immediate response is just to kind of throw up your hands and try to hold on to the now, because there's really no way of predicting, tracking, or stopping these rockets at the present moment.
Here we get a little talk later in the reading that we've done about the Battle of Britain, and they talk about, you know, the German Luftwaffe and the different defensive measures that you see, I guess, around the city that is still there, even though that the official Battle of Britain has been over for a couple of years by the time this book takes place. And yeah, the fact that these rockets can be launched from Europe into London, sort of from takeoff to landing in a matter of minutes, they just don't have any. There's just nothing anyone can do about it. You can call someone to let them know that one's coming, but you might as well just wait for someone to call in and say that their house, like the house next door, is gone, because that's sort of easier to respond to.
I think this is an interesting sort of perspectival shift for those of us living in an era where, like, ballistic missiles are far more common, or that this kind of distanced warfare is far more the norm, especially, you know, when launched by highly industrialized powers. Like, it is a big difference to think, oh yeah, bombs are something that drop from planes, to bombs are something that just, like, shoot out of the sky.
Well, I feel like also, what was that movie we watched, Patrick? It wasn't very good.
Eye in the Sky.
It got a lot of...
No,
No,
Eye
it
in
got
the
a lot
Sky
of
is also
recent
not
critical
very good.
acclaim.
I watched Eye in the Sky.
We watched Eye in the
theaters.
Sky. Yes, I was there. We watched it
Oh, you were
together.
there. Wow,
Yeah.
that's how
It
well
was
I
in
remember that
college.
movie.
What's the one I'm thinking of, Patrick? It came out last year. It's about the nuclear defense system.
Yeah, what was the name of it? House of Dynamite.
House of
Catherine
Dynamite.
Bigelow's.
Yeah, it
House
got a lot of
Dynamite.
critical acclaim, but I didn't like it very much. But anyways, putting that aside, I feel like today, at least, we fall in an interesting generation that didn't go through this mindset shift of bombs to ballistic missiles, didn't grow up in sort of the Cold War nuclear apocalypse.
During which time Thomas Pynchon is writing this book.
Yeah, but instead have kind of grown up in this age of like, oh yeah, all these like powerful countries have nuclear weapons, but we're sort of at a stasis and everyone can fire them, but also can defend against them, at least maybe until somewhat recently, with the exception of a few actors. There's been kind of this stasis. And I think that movie was interesting because it shows that we put a lot of trust in these missile defense systems, but actually the missile defense systems are not maybe as effective as we would like to believe they are. And they do not always work with the reliability that maybe we and trust that we place in them, that like, oh yeah, it's okay if, a bunch of nuclear ballistic missiles get fired at our biggest city. Certainly the defense system will take care of that. And I do think it's interesting to see this like immediate reaction to these missiles, which is just that like doom can fall at any moment. And the shift from that to maybe taking comfort in defense systems to maybe realizing that those are not all they're cracked up to be.
Yeah, I think that movie does a lot of interesting work. I'm also not the hugest fan of it as a piece of filmmaking per se, but it has some interesting ideas, including the statistical gambles that these sorts of things rely on, which comes up in a big way later on in these chapters.
Yes, I think one of my favorite parts of these chapters was the relationship to statistics that comes up later.
Should we move on to the second episode?
Let's do it.
1.2. Prentice makes his famous banana breakfast for a motley crew, including Teddy Bloat, Barley Gobbich, DeCoverly Pox, and Maurice Saxophone Reed. He gets a call to come to Greenwich immediately. Also, we're introduced to his special power of inhabiting other people's fantasies, which we learn about from a recollection of the time he brought down a giant rampaging adenoid.
Saxophone Reed, I got as a name. I got that one.
Yep.
A lot of good names.
You should see his brother, Clarinet.
When we got to the point about the adenoid, I was like, this is the strangest. This book has taken some interesting turns.
Well, now hang on. We got to get to
I
the
know
adenoid
we got to get through the
first.
banana breakfast first, but yeah.
We are first introduced here by Osby Feel to the concept that a banana, much like a rocket, resembles a penis.
Which we could have
Exactly.
put together.
Themes introduced in earnest.
I think one of our listeners on Reddit at some point, I read most of this comment out loud, but was asking if we felt that Thomas Pynchon was indeed sort of like dicklit. I didn't say that on air before, but I couldn't think of another word for it.
We got her to say it, folks.
I'm so sorry to my parents if they're listening.
You're quoting.
I'm quoting from what they said. Anyways, I do feel
It's lit with dicks.
like thus far in Gravity Rainbow, this book feels the most male oriented, male gaze oriented of the three books that we've read so far. I'm interested to see how that develops and if Thomas Pynchon is doing something with that. That's all I'll say at this point.
I trust old Thomas to land the plane, to land this massive, hulking, sort of like hewn together plane. But we shall see. What is everyone's favorite part of the banana breakfast?
Frappe.
The frappe was standing out to me as well, Andrew. The banana frappe.
Not the like fermented bananas?
That was interesting as well.
Just the pulverized ice for the banana frappe. It sounds so refreshing. Like just
It really did.
that
And it
every
surprised
morning.
me too.
Every morning in this cold, wintry London fog, just like waking up to a nice frappe.
Yeah, the frappe sounded good, but also the banana waffles sounded just top notch.
Where's the Thomas Pynchon commemorative Starbucks special of the banana frappe?
There's so much here. Banana omelets, banana sandwiches, banana casseroles, mashed bananas.
There's even a good banana adjective. The fragile, musaceous odor of breakfast. I had to look up what musaceous was because I was like, oh, maybe it relates to mucus or something. No, it's from like the genus of banana.
The banana-ish odor.
The banana-ish odor. Because every breakfast at this house smells like bananas.
I like bananas. I think this breakfast sounds excellent. I think if I had it every morning, I would be physically ill. I don't like bananas that much.
You have it every morning after drinking yourself into a stupor the night before?
They say, I've heard this, having never flown in a military jet, I've heard that they tell their, like the new pilots who are going up for the first time to only eat bananas the day before because bananas, this is going to be a little gross, taste the same if you get motion sickness. So maybe this is the best breakfast to have if you're egregiously hungover.
And you're planning on...
If you're like gonna throw up.
If you're planning on puking a lot later that evening, yeah.
Yeah. I will say, as far as eating this breakfast every day, I think I could probably do one item every day. Like, I don't want waffles and frappe and pancakes and like fried sandwiches, but like one of those things, I think I could do.
It's sort of like a brunch buffet. You can pick what you want.
Yeah. If there was like a banana restaurant that I could go to every morning on the way to work and be like, today I'm going to get the number 6, the frappe with pancake.
Do we think that the clandestine radio transmitter that's contained in the ancient brandy that Pirate has here is going to come back up later as a plot point?
Pirate is, or not. Teddy is doing some spying.
Yeah.
So this
but Pirate
feels like,
works for SOE, I think, which is the
Special Operations Executive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all
doing
seemingly
light
in some
spying.
espionage. Yeah.
Possibly.
Is everyone a spy in 1944 London?
I think
They
London
might
would
be.
have had you believe that was the case. I think that's how they wanted. The loose lip sync ships come from here. We've all seen Turing's Game. Is that what it's called? The Turing Game?
The Imitation Game.
The Imitation Game. Thank you.
Yeah. Are y'all, as you're reading this, imagining like really Hollywood-esque British accents that everybody has in terms of like, I'm thinking full on Dr. Strangelove, like Peter Sellers, very upper crusty received pronunciation for the officers and very like oi govna accents for the non-coms.
I'm
I have
so
not
bad
yet.
at doing accents that I can't really even think in them.
That's fair. That's fair. I never really thought about that. That like, yeah, thinking in an accent versus doing an accent or that's interesting. Anyways, I'm definitely doing that. I'm trying to remind myself as I'm going through it, like, no, make it more British for each one of these, so that when we get to our American later on, he really sounds like a yokel compared to a Yank compared to some of these folks.
Patrick, you realize this means we're going to be throwing you under the bus and having you perform your British accent for these different characters.
It came over in a rather delightful way, says the guy that calls Prentice on the radio.
Please, if you're a British listener, I'm sorry.
If you're a British listener, send us in a clip of reading some of it
Yes.
so that we can get our accents even better.
I wanted to highlight there are just some really beautiful moments. If you stay with Thomas's sentences and you really see them through to the end, I think there's some really beautiful prose in here. I particularly liked at the bottom of page 11. Prentice is sort of at breakfast, gets a phone call, and then it says, he gazes through sunlight's buttresses, back down the refectory at the others, wallowing in their plenitude of bananas, thick palatals of their hunger lost somewhere in the stretch of morning between them and himself. 100 miles of it, so suddenly. Solitude, even among the meshes of this war, can, when it wishes, so take him by the blind gut and touch, as now, possessively. Pirates again, some other side of a window, watching strangers eat breakfast. And this really stood out to me, first of all, because I feel like there's been a shift in Pynchon's prose where it is less tied to like the grammatical structure of a sentence. And there's a little bit more sort of like lyrical play with words in certain sections where it feels almost like a poem.
There's a lot of fragments. There's a lot of
like turns of phrase, like pirates again, some other side of a window.
Yeah.
Watching strangers eat breakfast. Like it's not exactly a standard.
Well, it does the thing that like especially early modern poetry would do, which is it makes the verb into an apostrophe. So like pirate becomes pirates, which you would do if you were writing verse to eliminate a syllable.
Mm-hmm.
But Pynchon is doing it here for its own sort of like prose lyricism.
Yeah, so I feel like his prose is getting like more lyrical. And then, I don't know, I thought this image was really beautiful. If he's had this really chaotic banana breakfast and then gets this phone call and then is suddenly sort of in this moment of solitude, even amongst the sort of chaos that's going on around him, which I think we see this solitude thing come up as a theme again later.
Mm-hmm.
His driver is named, his Batman, which I found out is an assistant, I guess, in British English. His name is Corporal Wayne.
Oh yeah, you didn't watch a lot of Downton Abbey back in the day?
No, I didn't. Did they use it a lot? I had to instantly Google it.
Our listeners from the UK can just fast forward through all of these word discussions that
I don't know how many of our listeners in the UK have Batmen.
Do our listeners in the UK know what our Batman is, though? Do you guys have Batman in the UK?
Our Batman's name is Wayne. Is Bruce Wayne, not Corporal Wayne. I truly did not even catch the Batman joke.
How did you not? It's the
How
most
did you miss
obvious.
that?
It's also the last sentence on this page, so it's just very clearly at the bottom. Batman Wayne.
I was thinking too much about how much I knew what a Batman was that I forgot that it might be a joke. Or something. Maybe I just don't read the last two words on every page.
You know, Patrick, no one would blame you for missing a few words in this section of Gravity's Rainbow.
Batman, Corporal Wayne. Oh, Thomas. The sort of like comic book vibes continue growing from there, though, as we are introduced to the superpower of Pirate Prentice, which is that, quote, he's good at getting inside the fantasies of others, being able actually to take over the burden of managing them. This is an interesting little psychic gift, I guess you might have.
And it seems, I kind of want to talk through this a little bit. Andrew, did you have something to say first?
No, I would love to talk through it.
Okay,
that's what we do here on this podcast. We talk through the book. We talk
through things. Because my understanding of this is that, yeah, he takes on other people's dreams, and this helps other people with their anxiety because they're able to like offload their dreams or uncomfortable fantasies onto him. But then it seems like the British intelligence is interested in this for reasons that are a little ambiguous, but maybe like, does it help you get into the head of someone else, or like, are they interested in leveraging it to like predict something about these rockets? I think I was a little mixed up about what the British intelligence are trying to get from this ability.
It seems like, well, not with the adenoid. The adenoid is like the first time that he does it professionally, but we hear that the first time that he does it at all, he just happens upon someone who sort of says a quote that matches a dream that he's had. So it seems like he can be sort of inside the minds of people. I think I just mentioned becoming John Malkovich on this show, but kind of like becoming John Malkovich. So yeah, I guess like in the pre-war era, he's doing it just to help British politicians de-stress. Like one of the examples they give is, I guess he becomes aroused so that a politician at the doctor doesn't get embarrassed while he's getting a checkup. But then, yeah, presumably if you can sort of project into people's minds or anxieties, you could try to leverage that if you can like literally get into the head of Hitler, I guess is probably the end goal. That's why I'm taking it anyway.
Yeah, I think it's telling that the examples that we get of this ability are broadly either anxious or sexual in nature, which is maybe related to the fact that the specific word they use here is fantasies. So like the first time he finds himself having like creepy thoughts about these girl guides, who I guess are the like Girl Scouts effectively, but of olden times. Maybe they still have Girl Guides in England. I'm not sure. But
it seems they do.
Yeah. So like when he is made uncomfortable by having these thoughts about these young girls, he realizes that in fact, actually it is the other guy leering in the park whose fantasies he has sort of like interpolated into himself. And then this is continued on, as you said, in the doctor's office and in the this adenoid we eventually get to. So at no point does it seem particularly pleasant for Prentice here. Like, you know what I mean? It's like he's taking on the intrusive thoughts of...
And like the shame and anxiety and all the things that people don't really want to think. Feels very, very Freudian once again.
Well, and we get a lot of psychology in this, especially by way of Pavlov, juxtaposed against Freud later on.
I think, Dury, to your point about like how he's helpful in the war, it's not like, I don't think Men Who Stare at Goats style. Like he's not leading a regiment of people doing psychic stuff. He just works in this like open concept office where they've clearly collected just a bunch of random people who all might be helpful. So I guess the military aren't convinced either that he can do it. They just think that he's better to have around than to not, you know?
Although
better to have him on their side than the other.
We do learn that there are some forces in the British intelligence who are corralling some of these weirdos and psychics and mystics and mathematicians together. So he's drawn up into that club one way or another.
It does feel like they're kind of throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks.
As someone does in this book.
I think someone does throw a dart in the wall.
You're so right. I didn't mean to make that analogy, but that's coming together now.
A dart is sort of shaped like a rocket.
And you know, the rockets are kind of hitting in a dart-like pattern on the city of London. Wow.
That's the book, everybody. We've done it.
Boom.
We cracked the code. Do we want to introduce this adenoid business? What's an adenoid?
Isn't it it's the thing in the back of your throat, right?
Yeah, it's like in your nose. But like, yeah, in here. Like I think I'm pointing to my cheekbone, listener. It's like up in your business.
Yeah. It's towards the back of your nasal cavity.
Kind of a lump of flesh.
Isn't everything a lump of flesh in
I
the
guess
body?
so. This is particularly lumpish, though. Don't they like get swollen or infected under circumstances?
I think so. One of those circumstances might be if you are
Stress over the Balkans.
Yeah, if you're stressed over the Balkans, and also if you're doing a lot of cocaine.
Yeah, so in this case, there was just like a free walking around adenoid.
Yeah, Dury, we watched the movie. We got a COVID shot one time, and then we're feeling bad the next day, and you were like wanting to relax and read a book, and I put on the 1980s remake of The Blob. Do you remember the fugue state in which you/I watched The Blob?
Yeah, I was a little feverish.
Kind of like what's happening here, like very mid-century sci-fi story, giant organ rampaging through the city.
I do like how the communication system that's developed with the adenoid involves a lot of like sort of like sniffing, like
and throwing cocaine at it.
Yeah. I don't know if my microphone picked up on that. I was trying to sniff really loudly.
Probably did.
For the listeners, yeah.
Andrew, whose adenoid is it? You were talking about the Balkans.
A guy whose name I'm not going to be able to find on this page. It's a real Thomas Pynchon-ass name. Lord Blatherard Osmo.
Yep.
Who else could it belong to? Lord Osmo. Who worked in the Foreign Office for an area called Novi Pazar, which is in the Balkans.
Yeah, which is a real place. This bit felt very V-coded to me.
Yeah.
This is the most sort of like
maybe V plus like a surrealist horror figure.
Yeah. Very much sort of British Foreign Office interwar period stencil-esque adventure in this far-flung part of England's sphere of influence. And I thought that this whole section with the rampaging adenoid, I have a note here where I've just written, this is a Calvin and Hobbes comic. Like, down to the writing style in the present tense of the, where is it? The adenoid is blasted, electric shocked, poisoned, changes color and shape here and there. Yellow fat nodes appear high over the trees. Before the flash powder cameras of the press, a hideous green pseudopod crawls toward the cordon of troops and suddenly, schlop, wipes out an entire observation post.
This also reminded me of Little Shop of Horrors a bit.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when they're shoveling cocaine at the adenoid. It reminded me of, like, feed me, Seymour, feed me.
Which I think is these are all references that I think are circling around this, like, sci-fi kind of stuff, out of which comes The Blob and, to some extent, King Kong and all these other Fantastic Voyage. I grew up watching a lot of those movies because of my dad's appreciation of, like, 1950s sci-fi, but this, I felt right at home here with the giant adenoid.
So Pirates, I got a little mixed up here about how Pirate's skill was being leveraged. His mission was to establish liaison with the adenoid. But I was a little confused. Is the adenoid a dream, or did the adenoid actually exist in the real world? The adenoid was a dream of the lords?
It's like I think it's an anxiety. The Lord is doing the coke, I assume, and it's like an anxiety of him, and Pirate takes on that anxiety, which allows the Lord to Osmo to continue to do coke and solve the Novi Pazar problem and then die. But solve the problem first.
Yeah, he's either, I think, allowing Osmo to do all of the coke because he's having all of the sort of raving fantasies, or honestly, maybe Prentice is just doing all of the coke that Lord Osmo would otherwise be doing. Who could say? One way or another, he's helping, I guess.
He stops in Armageddon.
Yeah, good for him.
Now, he maybe would have been a pre-Armageddon to the Armageddon they're experiencing now, but, that's a problem for another day.
Yeah, I liked the line, Pirate Prentice had saved Europe from the Balkan Armageddon the old men dreamed of, giddy in their beds with its grandeur, though not from World War II, of course.
We get here Prentice thinking a lot about the firm, as he calls them, his superiors. Is that like an established nickname for like British intelligence, or is that like a Pynchonism?
I feel like, now we would refer to it as like MI5 and MI6, right? Like that's sort of the post-war James Bond intelligence. But I think they would have been spinning this up during the war.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's not a good brand yet. There's not brand recognition.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I have not had a chance yet to crack into the Gravity's Rainbow Companion. We have left J. Cary Grant's magisterial companions behind in the Land of V and Crying of Lot 49, and we are now on to this one by Stephen C. Weisenberger, also out of the University of Georgia Press. So maybe that glosses the firm at some point.
The University of Georgia just have a big pension department?
I guess when you have a successful series of academic books that people actually buy, and like undergraduates especially might buy, and people unassociated with the university might buy to help them read this book, yeah, I would say you just keep coming out with them.
The dogs.
Are we ready for section 3?
Section 3. Teddy Bloat sneaks into the Allied Clearinghouse Technical Units Northern Germany, or Achtung, quarters to snapshot a map of London annotated by one Tyrone Slothrop to mark his sexual encounters.
Yeah, this Allied Publishers Clearinghouse place, it's
Did you intentionally say Publishers Clearinghouse?
Yeah. It's we just have heard about this mystical The Firm, and whatever you're picturing there, Achtung is not that.
It ain't it.
And for the record, Achtung is danger in German. I assume you both looked that up, but maybe some of the listeners don't know.
I don't actually know if I knew that it was like what it precisely stood for, but I've heard Achtung enough that I was like, it means like danger or alert
you
or
see
like
the signs
warning.
with the exclamation point and, like an electric shock symbol.
Yeah. Danger makes sense though.
It just kind of, the literal Achtung is sort of basically just one room at the end of the hall. It feels like there's a couple secretaries. So otherwise it's not got a lot going on. And Teddy is there on his lunch break to clandestinely take photos.
Yeah, he's got his camera stuffed into his bag beneath his banana sandwich, which he suspects people, the Tyrone will know he's been there because it smells like bananas.
It could be one of 5 people. Very funny.
Someone associated with pirate, though, is here. This is the downside of every morning eating pirate or banana breakfast, is that you then have to eat leftover banana lunch.
Mm.
Yeah, we are introduced not to Slothrop yet, but to Slothrop's desk, which, just like a magnificent turn of phrase, things have fallen roughly into layers over a base of bureaucratic smegma that sifts steadily to the bottom.
And here we have one of those really long lists where Pynchon lists kind of everything that has piled up on Slothrop's desk.
I really liked pins, nubs of pens, stubs of pencils, because you get both a little play on the pin-pen merger, and also pens have nubs, but pencils have stubs. Just like 4 words that really made me giggle. I also think it's funny that Slothrop has scribbled ukulele chords. I like to imagine for the rest of this book that in the downtime, Slothrop is just like strumming away on a ukulele. I think that's a nice image. Humanizing image.
Humanizing image, yeah. Something else that stood out to me about this list was that it's sort of like a bunch of like detritus of the wartime. He has like household milk, which was like a type of rationed powdered milk during the war, and other sort of like ration books and like a lot of little different traces of things from World War II. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I was just recently thinking about how in our medicine closet we have about like 7 enormous bottles of 6-year-old Purell from COVID. And I was kind of pondering like the sort of like detritus of like a common disaster sort of being like collected over the course of however many years on like one desk. Like imagine if there was sort of like COVID cards and Purell and like a bottle of disinfectant and all the other like little things that are unique to a time period sort of like piled up on a desk.
I haven't found my vaccine card in a minute. No one's asked for it in a while.
Mine's in the safe.
Maybe mine's probably in the safe too.
Yeah.
I've got one question. I just noticed this here. Not the first time we read through it. It says that there's the amber left eye of a Weimaraner. That's not a Rolex Submariner joke, is it? Is that something else? I'm confused.
Weimaraner is a dog.
Yeah, Weimaraner's
dog.
A dog? Okay, good.
I think it's part of it's a part of the jigsaw puzzle. I got confused by that. So the jigsaw puzzle has the eye of the dog, the green velvet folds of a gown, the cloud,
dog,
the sunset.
I'm Googling this dog while we speak. I need
a flying fortress airplane.
The orange nimbus of an explosion, perhaps a sunset, also sounds exactly like the cover. I know we just talk about book covers constantly on this podcast, but it sounds a lot like the cover to the first edition of Gravity's Rainbow, which is this big sort of like sunset-esque explosion, orange explosion in the sky.
I feel like we see more sort of sun explosion imagery coming
Pynchon
up
likes talking about the sun
a little bit later on.
And how scary it is and how
and how much we want to hide from it.
How much we want to hide from it or put it out or please stop the sun.
Yeah, we've been talking about the sun since episode 1 of this show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Running theme. The jigsaw puzzle kind of tripped me up because I was like, how did a whole gown fit on this guy's desk? And I had to go back and...
Yeah, there's also, I found this somewhere that like News of the World, although it sounds like a very sort of official paper of record type thing, it's like a very salacious tabloid. Is the kind of news material that Slothrop has on his desk is like the bottom of the barrel of reportage.
Gotcha. I found myself throughout this episode of the book that we read having to look up a lot of things because I feel not that I was an expert in sort of like American GI lingo, but I'm even less of an expert in like British references of the 1945 time period.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear from our British listeners if certain parts of this are like they pick up on more. I feel like I was having to look up a lot of different things.
I do think that's worth thinking about. This is the first Pynchon book we've read that doesn't take place predominantly in the United States. Like V jumped around sort of globally, but the main, present day action was in 1956. Crying of Lot 49 basically takes place in 100 miles up and down the coast of California.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear from a British person if it feels sort of as embedded in the space as the American novels do. I feel like it feels like Pynchon did his research and not in just a like open up the encyclopedia sort of way.
This is more than the Carl Beideker's guide to...
Yeah, like even the throat lozenges, like there's many mentions of throat lozenges throughout this episode, including like Teddy Bloat has these Meloids for a mellow voice, which are like a British throat lozenge, versus Slothrop has the Thayer's Slippery Elm throat lozenges, which are from Massachusetts. So there's even like localized cough drops.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like he did his research.
Or Big Cough Drop took everything over. And
Yeah.
it's just
Also
Ricola.
possible.
For
Maybe
the,
we all used to have our like really preferred brand of cough drop. I like Halls.
the Swiss invasion.
Yeah. I'm big. Ricola, like honey and ginger is.
Oh,
my
I
bread
like
and
the
butter.
Ricola natural. I want it to taste like drinking a shot of like Fernet or Jägermeister. Or
I want like the menthol flavor
Alpine
in my throat.
liqueur.
I need my throat to tingle.
Yeah. Should we talk about the map? The all important map that Bloat is here to photograph?
Yeah,
Photograph.
as important as the map is to these 4 pages, we've been talking about a lot of stuff that isn't the map.
What's on the map? It's a map of London.
And it has little stickers on it. It's very
Star stickers.
It's like very first grade. You get a star
Yeah.
every time you've done a good job.
And what are the good jobs that are implied by this map?
It's every time that Slowthorpe finds an amour, sleeps with a nice lady. He gives them a green star or a gold star or a silver star or a blue star or a red star. Although that doesn't seem to be a reflection on them. It just seems to be based on his mood at the time.
Yeah. We know that.
I guess we don't know that totally.
Soon coming up. For right now, Bloat is just like, I wonder if the colors of the stars have any meaning to them.
He thought it might be their names. Like everyone named Catherine has a certain color star, which seems like the wrong answer to me.
See, you'd want to give everyone named Catherine a different color star, because otherwise you got a bunch of silver Catherines running around.
Well, yeah, and like you'd quickly run out of numbers of stars. Like I feel like the colors of stars is not equivalent to the number of female names in Britain.
Yeah, and we haven't talked yet about that Slothrop. There's another desk next to Slothrop's in Achtung here, which is
Lieutenant Oliver Tanvity Muckermathix.
Yes.
Excellent. Wow.
So Tantivy is like a type of it's another horse term of like a kind of gallop, not quite a gallop, but like a quick
Trot.
It's more than a trot. Let's see. Merriam-Webster, looked this up. Merriam-Webster says it is a rapid gallop. So I guess it's more than a gallop.
So than a gallop. A sprint.
Yeah. And Maffic is another term here that means to celebrate with boisterous rejoicing or hilarious behavior. So he's like Mr. Quick Celebration.
Interesting. And he has a neat desk.
He has a very neat desk, and he is old, sort of like college, university buddies with Bloat. Which is presumably how Bloat can kind of like get in and take a look at the map.
Gotcha. And he's kind of learned about the map a little bit from Tantivy.
Who thinks it's just like, I guess this is just what Americans do. I guess they just put maps up with stars and, keep track of these sorts of things.
Yeah, and it seems that Slothrop's job is to go around, or at least his current assignment is to go around and look at the remnants of sites that have been hit by the V2 rocket, ostensibly with the goal of like learning more about the V2 rocket. And so I think there's some suspicion that maybe this map isn't just about girls, but is also somehow related to the rocket, or is somehow some important intelligence document and not just sort of a frat boy tally of like all the women that he slept with.
Have you guys ever seen the TV show Kentaro the Sweet Tooth Salaryman?
No.
This is a Japanese TV show. I think it had 1 season. It was on Netflix, and this reminds me of this a lot, and it'll explain. He sells paper, and he's like a door-to-door paper salesman, but he always picks his route so that he can go buy the new hip like sweets bakery or like place in Tokyo, and then he has a secret blog that he'll like review the whatever dessert he ate that day while he was supposed to be selling paper. And he's a very good paper salesman, so he gets his paper salesman stuff done really quickly. And then he goes and treats himself for dessert every episode.
Nice.
And it reminds me of that, is that like kind of while he's supposed to be out doing a job, he's just finding 20 minutes here and there to pick up chicks.
Which is interesting because later on in this episode, we'll talk more about it in a minute, but Roger Mexico is actually putting together sort of a statistical visualization of all the places that these V2 rockets have landed. And Slothrop is sort of putting together, maybe by accident, a little scatter plot of where all these rockets have landed, corresponding to secondary data of the women that he slept with near to where these rockets have landed.
Yeah,
not,
there's.
I guess.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Slothrop is American, and we find that out in a later
from
section.
His throat lozenges.
But from his throat lozenges, we know. But he doesn't seem like he's got. I guess he is scared of the rockets. We know this also from later, but he's not really nose to the grindstone. It doesn't feel like the way you should be when you're getting missiled from across the English Channel continuously.
No, actually, a lot of these sort of intelligence missions feel a little bit like busy work, or I was getting the realization, I was trying to keep track of all of the different intelligence agencies that are mentioned, and there's kind of a lot of them.
Oh, I've got some diagrams.
I would love that. I was like, okay, we've got like Octung, we've got like the SOE, we've got the Pisces group. Anyways, there's a lot of like intelligence agencies from various different allied forces, and they don't seem to be working together. In fact, in many cases, they seem to be competing with each other. And a lot of the tasks that the people in these intelligence agencies are doing feel kind of bureaucratically bloated, as in, I don't know, either they're throwing all their darts at the wall, so to speak.
The darts again.
The darts come up again, and we're, seeing if some of them stick. We have a psychic, we have a statistician, we have some psychiatrists, we have a guy that's going around to look at all these different sites and see if he sees anything. And we're just kind of seeing what comes up with something. Or it's like we have all these spies we need to keep him, like we've overhired spies and we need to keep them employed. And now we're giving them all these random tasks to do.
Look, if you don't spend the budget this year, the budget gets reduced next year, Dury. You have to send Slothrop out every day to look at something to keep the budget.
And he doesn't seem to have a special skill like some of these other folks do.
Yeah, this is probably as good a transition as any to leave Teddy Bloat with his bag zipped up and leaving the building and jump to episode 4. Here, episode 1.4, where my summary is, Slothrop is a lonely guy who comes from an old, withering New England family. Achtung gets no respect, and he's just in time to see Prentice make off with something from a V2 impact zone. So we are kind of introduced in the first place. I felt so smart when I put it together that the quote-unquote idiot chase out to 0 longitude meant that Slothrop was also headed to Greenwich. Like Greenwich Mean Time, the 0 longitude, because it's the meridian.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is where Pirate gets a call to go out to Greenwich. I don't know. Let me have this. You're smirking at me, but let me have this.
I'm smirking at you because I did not realize until 10 pages later when I saw Pirate Prentice's name written in full again. I was like, oh, the Captain Prentice that was at the site that got the thing that Slothrop was looking for. So it's coming together for us at different times.
Yeah, so Slothrop heads to Greenwich, where Captain Pirate Prentice is, and Achtung gets no respect out here. The quote-unquote prickly bastards from the SOE take their time about everything. They keep sending out these requests for shared intelligence. Achtung, meaning presumably kind of just Slothrop and maybe Tantivy, just sort of get nothing. They get nowhere fast with any of the sort of higher ups of British intelligence.
Yeah, and can we review, just for my sake, and maybe I'm hoping also the listeners, these different intelligence agencies? I would love to walk through your diagram, Patrick.
The big ones we have right now are Achtung, which Slothrop works for, which seems to be like a...
American?
Or
but
like
also it has a German name. It means danger in German.
It does. But I think I assume the name is sort of like a ironic twist in universe or a Pynchon-esque irony. It might be a kind of coalition thing because there is a British officer who is also in the Achtung headquarters, but it seems like that is Slothrop's main affiliation.
But it seems lower ranking than the SOE, which is the more like official British intelligence.
Yeah, SOE is Special Operations Executive.
British only.
British only.
It's real. That's they're a real group.
Yes. Achtung, not real. SOE, definitely real. We also get, I think, in this episode, some various other...
Get the political warfare executive.
Yeah, there's
PWE,
political warfare executive. There are the Wrens, who are a kind of like female auxiliary force, I think, associated with the British Army. And then there's also the ATs, who are a different, like, sort of women's organization of the British military.
Okay. And then we have Pisces, which comes up later.
Yeah, we'll get to Pisces and
later.
The White Visitation later. But I think Prentice calls SOE the firm a lot.
Okay.
I think when he says the firm, he means SOE, unless he means...
But the firm was Pisces.
Is the firm Pisces?
I think the firm is Pisces because they talk about the firm, like, I think they talk at some point during the White, when they're at the White Visitation, in the next episode, they refer to what the firm is doing.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think is the Pisces group.
Yeah, well, let's unpack it when we get to that part of the text. I believe the firm is someone, but Prentice works for the firm and is also definitely associated with SOE.
Okay, thank you for that review.
And he shows up to get this. This is the when he gets the call in the second episode or first episode that like someone's got dropped off mail for him. It is this weird graphite cylinder that survived the impact of this V2 rocket.
I feel like it would be very helpful if Pynchon would kindly bold the sort of key plot points in here so that I, when reviewing the plot, could kind of get a quick summary of what took place in the midst of the very descriptive language.
They're all key plot points. There's no plot point that isn't key here. You know, we learned one thing from Lot 49 and V. Another important thing that happens here, Slothrop, and I kind of didn't even catch this until I was reviewing some of these pages just before we recorded. He gets a new TDY, or temporary duty, that reassigns him to a hospital out in East End. So he comes into the Achtung HQ, has these new orders that he's supposed to go out to this hospital.
For something that seems kind of like psychiatric testing.
Yeah, for the PWE, Political Warfare Executive Testing Program.
Historically, is this kind of a big moment for psychiatry?
That's something I want to dig more into as we keep going in this book. I've Googled a little bit of like Pavlov and stuff associated with these episodes, but I've not dug too much into it.
I was curious because I just on an airplane recently watched the movie, or at least 98% of the movie because the plane landed Nuremberg, and it really centers around a psychiatrist sort of trying to unpack the psyches of the Nazis on trial. And it feels, I don't know, that which takes place at a time not too distant from this book felt like psychiatry was kind of having a moment, almost like it did in the sort of 1970s when everyone got really into analyzing serial killers. And the FBI got really into psychiatry.
Yeah,
and I feel like we've seen a lot
profiling,
of media surrounding that.
Well, this is also coming off, I think, we saw in V and, well, of course, also in Lot 49 that there's a lot of sort of Freudianism. And I think what we're seeing in this book thus far is like the steps past the sort of Freud craze in the early part of the 20th century into this kind of like mid-century psychological understanding. And I will admit I'm not by any means an expert on any of that, so that is something I'll look into this, see what's going on with Pavlov.
I was noticing this as kind of a running theme, and we'll be interested to kind of learn more about what was happening in psychiatry in 1945. I guess British intelligence was into it, according to Pynchon.
So we finally get some characterization of Slothrop here, like direct characterization. Once upon a time, Slothrop cared, or he thinks he did, and he's starting to kind of lose himself a little bit in the mundanity of his assignments as part of this war. He sort of misses, to some extent, the buzz bombs or the doodle bugs. Again, these like V1 unmanned aerial bombs, as opposed to these rockets, quote, them fucking rockets, that kind of really give him the shakes. He is deeply distressed by the new V2s.
And we get a little characterization of his relationship with Tantivy as well, where we learn that they have sort of a habit of getting drunk together. There's this story of how they got kicked out of a gentleman's club, which is a real gentleman's club in London called the Junior Athenaeum, for sort of starting a fight.
Yeah, and it seems to be that their relationship is a little bit like Slothrop takes a look at Tantivy and is like, I know what this guy's problem is. He needs to get laid. And Tantivy looks at Slothrop and is like, this is the saddest, loneliest human I've ever met. I don't think this man has a single friend.
Yeah, I think we have this continuation of this theme of like, you can be surrounded by people and still be very lonely and alone. Whereas Slothrop is sort of sleeping with all of these women, but Tantivy sees him as incredibly lonely. And I think earlier Prentice had a moment where he was in this house full of people eating banana breakfast and then felt sort of utterly alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm getting a kind of dualistic, like maybe Benny Profane and Herbert Stencil-esque, like these are our two weird guys who we're going to be following through some of this with Slothrop and Prentice. I'm not sure where Roger Mexico fits into that equation quite yet, but
we will see. There's quite an ensemble here. I've been having a challenging time figuring out which characters are going to be our central characters and which are going to be sort of B-plot characters.
Yeah.
But I do feel like the interiority we've had of Prentice and Slothrop is sort of positioning them as maybe more important.
Yeah, this book is long enough. We could spend a lot of time with all of these guys at some point. I wouldn't put it past Pynchon if, I don't know, if all three or more people, if they just keep introducing people who we just keep spending time with. Dude, Teddy Bloat, I hope he comes back.
300 pages where we just don't hear about Slothrop at all. I'd believe it.
I would absolutely believe that. So there's this sort of episode where he like is telling Tantivy about this Saturday night where he went to this sort of dance club and like glimpsed these two women.
Is this Norma and Marjorie?
Yeah, Norma and Marjorie. And my understanding was that they were both women that he had slept with and he didn't want them to meet each other. But then later, I think they were referred to as Wrens. So then I was wondering if they were actually part of that women's intelligence agency that you mentioned, Patrick.
Yeah, so the Wrens, let me just look this up. The Wrens are the Women's Royal Navy Service, or WRNS, aka Wrens. So they're the women's branch of the Royal Navy. they were like started in the First World War, then disbanded, and they came back in the Second World War. Wikipedia says that they included cooks, clerks, wireless, telegraphists, radio plotters, weapons analysts, range assessors, electricians, etc., etc. It's kind of all over the place, but associated with the Royal Navy.
I see. So then
the ATs are the Auxiliary Territorial Service, which are like a women's service of the British Army.
Okay. So later, when Tantivy says, "What happened? Silence from Slothrop. Your two Wrens," but it's not the acronym. It just says
that. I think they're
Victoria.
It's not
Wren?
always. Yeah, maybe it's not always listed in the acronym. Like I think Wren, just WREN, the word was a common sort of nickname.
Okay,
for them.
gotcha.
But yes, I think this is correct that he had a bad Saturday night with Norma and Marjorie in the same club. This is also where we get his explanation of he just puts up the colors of stars depending on how he's feeling on the day.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the women. He thinks all the women are beautiful, no matter sort of who they are, what they look like. He thinks they're all beautiful. And then he sort of muses. He quotes Thomas Hooker, "I know there is wild love and joy enough in the world, as there are wild thyme and other herbs, but we would have garden love and garden joy of God's own planting. How Slothrop's garden grows, teems with virgin's bower, with forget-me-nots, with rue, and all over the place, purple and yellow as hickeys, a prevalence of love and idleness."
A lot of plants in this book.
I know. I've been enjoying all of the garden imagery.
Did you guys know that there aren't fireflies in England?
I did not.
Sort of micro paragraph after this really blew my mind.
The Slothrop's running pickup line is that he tells the English ladies about fireflies.
It's a good pickup line.
It's
I see why that works.
It's an insanely good pickup line.
Oh my God.
Imagine discovering that.
Let me take you back to Wisconsin where they have fireflies.
We've got lots of fireflies. I feel like I've been disappointed to learn that Slothrop is from Massachusetts because I feel like he has a Midwestern energy.
He really does. I agree.
Yeah. Should we...
Sorry, or you're welcome to everyone from the Midwest listening.
We are a pro-Midwest, pro-Southeast podcast. That's where our affiliations lie. Yeah, Tantivy, this is another one of these classic Thomas Pynchon sections where, like, we're getting a story, but the story is interrupted every couple of paragraphs to tell a different story, and it's like flashing back and forth between this conversation that Tantivy and Slothrop are having, and then Slothrop's own musings on his sort of fate and lineage and
also his relationships with various women.
Yeah.
There's this like running theme I feel throughout this section of love and sex and connection as being a source of sort of light and warmth and joy in the midst of the grayness and destruction of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not a long-term relationship, although in some cases it is, but in Slothrop's case, it's all these sort of like short interactions with women, but he seems to genuinely view them as moments of sort of warmth and connection in his otherwise drab and isolated life.
Yeah, it's all he has.
Yeah.
He's got this and he's got Tantivy.
Yeah. Patrick, had you heard of Bovril before?
Bovril? Yeah.
Bovril?
Yeah.
I was curious because you like Vegemite.
I like Marmite. I like Marmite the best. Vegemite's all right. Sorry.
Have you tried Bovril?
I've not tried Bovril. I would like to.
That was a good example of a Britishism that I felt I would have understood if I were British. That and the reference to the Blackpool Preston North End game, which I had to look up, but those are two.
Yeah, Bovril.
Football.
Bovril is kind of like it's kind of like Marmite, except it I think is like it is meat. not yeast. It's meat.
Yeah, beef.
Yeah, beef. And you like some people put it in tea or, spread it on toast.
Interesting.
Do what you got to do. But no, I haven't tried it. But I am a big fan of Marmite.
Anyways, Slothrop recalls enjoying a cup of Bovril with with Irene.
Yeah, we get another they here, where Slothrop says you can't hear them when they come in. Tantivy knows which they.
Yeah, and Slothrop is sort of violently shivering at this point, kind of seeming to have maybe a little bit of a panic attack related to the V2 rockets. Tantivy's kind of trying to calm him down.
It's just like an enormous bullet, I do think it's interesting that he's like, this is just what the infantry deal with every day. You never hear the bullet that gets you because the bullet goes faster than the speed of sound.
Which Slothrop does not find comforting.
There's this is a type of being helpful where you're like, look, man, someone's got it worse than you. But and he uses it as a recruiting tool because that's how he ends up getting the job. He's like, look, let's get as close to these V2s as possible. Come work for me at Achtung.
Yeah, and then we get some narratives of some of the first sites that he went to investigate the V2 rockets. He seems to help in the recovery of people. Sometimes he gets there early enough that he helps sort of pull people out from under the rubble. He saved a little girl half suffocated under a Morrison shelter, which I looked up, is like an air raid shelter that people used to have in their houses that doubled as a dining table. It's kind of creepy.
Well, that's
very Cold War.
It looks like a cage, basically. That's also a dining table, and I guess you get into your dining table cage, and it's designed to withstand the collapse of a 2-story building.
Oh, wow! I should have looked this up. That is really interesting. I'll put a link to this in the show
ominous
notes.
Thing to have in one's home, but I guess practical if London is being continually bombed.
Yeah, this is a smart idea. It's sort of, look, your house might come down, but you will survive inside this little box. Sort of a coffin.
Yeah, it is sort of a coffin.
A coffin with like chicken wire on the edges so that you can breathe, I guess.
Yeah, it's really eerie. I don't know that I would want one in my house, but maybe if there were sort of constant air raids, I would open my mind to it.
It looks like they've also got them sort of, there's a photo here that has them sort of double stacked and they're being used as like bunk beds. Like there's kids sleeping up top and a dad sleeping on the bottom one.
Interesting. I guess it would make sense if you wanted to sleep in your shelter in case you didn't wake up during an air raid at night.
Well, especially if the rocket does not make any noise.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe they turn them from dining tables into bunk beds at the.
Yeah, an interesting thing about the V2s historically is that they were, for a variety of reasons, less effective than the Germans were hoping. And one of the reasons I was reading or like heard about on a podcast episode that I was listening to was like the Germans didn't have very good maps of like the surroundings around. Like they could hit London broadly, but they didn't have very good air reconnaissance or topography of some of the surrounding locations, and especially like outside of just hitting a major city, they couldn't really. They could target them to a specific place, but they weren't totally sure what they were going to hit. So it's like they were really accurate, but they didn't have again, like the dartboard thing. They like didn't know where the lines were on the dartboard.
Mm.
I mean, it seems like,
and they were also really expensive.
It seems like, I mean, compared to like today's surface to surface missiles that have GPS and can fly themselves, this was just a glorified like trebuchet or cannon where you're just firing it, and if it's very windy in England, it's going to land, downwind of wherever the parabola would be.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is that they figured out, like, what's the difference again between like precision and accuracy, where they could hit what they were aiming for, but they didn't know exactly what they were aiming at until
accuracy
got there.
When you're close to the right value. Precision is when all of your values are close together. but not necessarily close to what you want it to be.
Okay, so it was precise but not accurate.
Yes, I think this is the thing that I was reading up on. Is it was like a very precise rocket, but they weren't always accurate.
Well, it seems like it needed to be coupled with another form of intelligence that they didn't
Yeah,
yet have.
if they don't have a map, they're just firing it into downtown. You're just hoping.
It seems like they needed some satellite imagery.
But they were very effective.
If only.
They were a very effective weapon as like a terror campaign, basically. Like they were very scary and, they had a psychological effect, perhaps
Actually,
even more than their...
Maybe more scary that they landed in random places than knowing that they were going to be primarily targeted at, say, military targets.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why everyone is obsessed with the maps of where they're hitting, is because, like, they are trying to figure out how capable the Germans are at targeting specific locations, or whether they just seem to be random.
How incredibly Pynchon to be trying to find a logic in what is actually just sort of a random, chaotic set of destruction.
Yeah, but as we come to find out, perhaps even true randomness conforms to certain statistical
patterns.
or probabilistic patterns.
I just have to highlight that as I was Googling Morrison shelters, I sent a picture in the general chat. I found myself accidentally on a survivalist website that says the Morrison shelter is back and has a link for where to buy your survival food. So
great. You want me to? Should I link to that website in the show notes? Just throw them some business.
No, that's okay. I do not infrequently find myself accidentally landing on prepper websites when I'm Googling things.
I bet we could get preppers to sponsor us. How much do you think a prepper ad read would be?
Oh, that's a good example of COVID detritus. I found
several. You guys have a bomb shelter in the backyard that you don't use anymore?
I have 2 go bags that I made that I found in our crawl space when it recently flooded.
Okay, honestly, I guess we haven't talked about this, but all of the stuff that's gone on between the first half of recording this episode and the second half of recording this episode, you guys should have had a bomb shelter installed.
Yeah, our house has been experiencing a lot of digging.
Yeah, listeners, see if you can figure out where the break was where we had to step away for a week to deal with a variety of
with the plumbing disaster,
emergency plumbing issues.
We ourselves have been experiencing some of the sounds of war with sort of incessant jackhammering and digging of trenches underneath our house.
Yeah. It is worse to be actually bombed.
Yes, that was maybe an insensitive comparison.
Should we talk about...
No danger has been presented to us.
Should we talk about the Pilgrims?
What
are the Pilgrims up to?
The Pilgrims. The Slothrops go way back.
I said the Pilgrims and the Puritans would come back up. And here they are.
We get a little genealogy of the Slothrop family.
Slothrops progress. Like Pilgrim's Progress.
Constant and variable Slothrop.
Yeah, real quick before we get there, there's one more they. Slothrop had become obsessed with the idea of a rocket with his name written on it. If they're really set on getting him, they, embracing possibilities far, far beyond Nazi Germany. That's the surest way. It doesn't cost them a thing to paint his name on every one, right? And then he says this phrase, operational paranoia. Or Tantivy says operational paranoia, which is intriguing. He remembers the first V2 that landed on a Friday evening in September. A lady with a lunchbox says that it's, quote, some bloody gas main, which was, in fact, I learned this on the same reading I was doing, the initial government explanation for what the first V2 to hit was, because they didn't want the Germans to pick up on the news broadcast that they knew what it was. So they called it a gas main explosion. And then, of course, more V2 rockets started hitting. So
I mean, it seems like
historical tidbit.
The V2s will hit a house, but it's basically just one house that gets destroyed. It doesn't seem to be, even though it's a big rocket, its, I guess, payload is not, it's not like it's taking out city blocks at one time. It's taking out 1 or 2 domiciles based on what we've seen so far, and I guess what we see in the rest of the stuff we'll cover in this episode.
Yeah, and you can imagine the Americans learning about this V2 rocket and sort of thinking like, if we could get one of those and put some of the shit we're working on the front of one of those things.
Oh boy.
And
get some satellite imagery.
Anybody know how we can get some engineers out of Nazi Germany? So then we get to the Pilgrims. Constant Slothrop. There's a really good, depending on your taste, name of a town here of Mingeboro, Massachusetts. Minge, of course, being a vulgar term for female genitalia. Got Mingeboro, Massachusetts. Not a real town, of course, just a Pynchonism. But it's where the Slothrops are from.
And we kind of go on a review of their gravestones. There's this imagery of the hand of God emerging from a cloud on one of the, what is it? Constance gravestone? Constance. Possessive. The gravestone of Constance.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see.
They sound the same when I say them out loud. Constance and Constance. I don't know if that is just an accent thing. But yeah, there's this imagery of the hand of God reaching out of the sky. And we also get another sort of sun imagery as we're reviewing is it the gravestone etchings? Yeah, the stones showing round-faced angels with the long noses of dogs, toothy and deep-socketed death's heads, Masonic emblems, flowery urns, feathery willows, upright and broken, exhausted hourglasses, sun faces about to rise or set with eyes peeking Kilroy style.
Ding, ding,
First
ding, ding,
Kilroy.
ding, 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 ding.
First Kilroy.
Over their horizon. A memorial verse running from Straight On and Foursquare. So
I should get a soundboard for every time Kilroy shows up. That's just like, damn, son, where'd you find this?
Now Kilroy is the sun, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of meditation on death here. Death is a debt to nature due, which I have paid, and so must you.
Yeah, we get an epitaph of each one of the Slothrops. We get a little unattributed Emily Dickinson poetry. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me.
Yeah, they make a point out that like Emily Dickinson was never that far away. Because she was, we're in New England. It's all pretty close together.
Yeah, and we get another little Emily Dickinson poem to describe the Slothrop's sort of fall from wealth. Ruin is formal, devil's work, consecutive and slow. Fail in an instant, no man did. Slipping is crash's law.
So the Slothrops make most of their money in like timber and paper, basically. As Pynchon says it, they cut down forests and made toilet paper, banknote, stock, newsprint, a medium or ground for shit, money, and the word, which are, quote unquote, the 3 American truths. Shit, money, and the word.
Yeah, and their ruin comes from, there's this observation that most people sort of cut down trees and mined what they could on the East Coast, and then they moved west because there was plenty more to consume and tear down and make your millions off of. And the Slothrops didn't move west. They just sort of stayed on the land that they had depleted.
Constants, you might call them.
Constants. And sort of fell into ruin. So they fell from their riches from selling all of this timber into sort of a state of ruin over the years, especially once the Depression hit.
What do we make of this? Why are we getting what purpose does this? We've talked a little bit about Thomas Pynchon's actual sort of family genealogy, including his familial relation to Miss Taylor Swift, includes these like long-standing New England families. They're the Pynchions, as they were called back in the day, are mentioned in like a Nathaniel Hawthorne novel at one point as being like some neighbors down the way of the main characters that like, oh yeah, the Pynchons are over there. So, they go way back.
I don't know exactly yet. I think it might be some backstory on Slothrop that maybe is going to be part of his character going forward, that this lineage that he comes from is important to understanding him.
Yeah, I'm interested to think of the, like, there seems to be a lot of questions of predestination or, like, randomness or sort of, like, natural circumstance in this book that maybe relates to some of this Puritan religiosity or ideology here of, like, look, the bomb is either going to get you or it's not. And if the bomb gets you, that's nature or God collecting a debt.
Yeah, a lot of the epitaphs feel very kind of resigned to death. Death is a debt to nature due, because I could not stop for death. He kindly stopped for me. While the great loom of God works in darkness above, and our trials here below are but threads of his love, which kind of reminded me of that painting we looked at, the Remedios Varos painting.
Yeah.
Where the tapestry was being woven from the tower in Crying of Lot 49.
Mm-hmm.
But they all seem sort of resigned to death as something that's fated for them. And there's sort of I guess they kind of make this connection between Slothrop sort of looking to the sky. Like Slothrop's been looking to the sky for these rockets.
Slothrop's kind of always looked to the sky with this like pointing hand of God.
There's a section about Northern Lights as well. One of the... I guess, young Tyrone. That's our Slothrop.
His memory.
So this is in 1931. He wakes up in the middle of the night because the Northern Lights are outside. Like he wakes up in the middle of the night, goes outside, and sees the Northern Lights. Because he has this, as they say, it's probably... Where did they have this? Somewhere he says, like, God help him, it's probably in his official file that he has, like, some kind of
connection to the
sky and things happening in it.
Yeah, and there was this interesting passage when they were talking about the Northern Lights where they say, like a meteor shower, they said, like cinders from the 4th of July. It was 1931, and those were the comparisons. So we see how, lights in the sky were maybe... had more positive connotations in 1931 than they do now in 1945 after all the bombs have been falling from the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we cut back to the first time he sees the V2 64316 BDST, the British double summertime. Did y'all look up what this was?
I assumed it was daylight savings time.
It's like double daylight savings time because they're like trying to save on energy. So you like move the clocks 2 hours so that you don't have to use so much electricity and gas into the evening.
Interesting.
It is smart. But I also think it ties into the themes in an interesting way because you have like, oh yeah, even, official time itself is kind of a variable prospect during wartime. Like you just say it's 6 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock. Why not?
Yeah, and everything's been sort of affected by the war. I think there was a line at one point where it was talking about like military versus civilians and what's the difference anymore. That it seems like everyone has been sort of co-opted into this war effort. Yeah. And the fabric of everyday life has sort of been completely transformed.
So on this image of the great bright hand reaching out of the cloud, should we take a quick break before we come back for a spooky seance?
That sounds great.
All right, Pynchon Pals, we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back.
We're so back.
Episode 1.5. A seance to rouse the dead Roland Feldspath is wrapping up. The medium is Carol Eventer. Milton Gloaming is a statistician taking notes. Also in attendance is Jessica Swanlake of the Auxiliary Territorial Service. I cannot say that word any quicker, or that phrase any quicker. Her lover, Roger Mexico, is chatting with Prentice about things like the White Visitation and Pisces, or psychological intelligence schemes for expediting surrender. Most recently, the Firm has developed an interest in something called Operation Blackwing. Prentice muses on his own doomed military affair, likening it to Roger and Jessica's. How much do y'all know about seances?
Not a ton. I know there was a fad for them in sort of the first half of the 20th century.
As we saw in V.
I feel like they've fallen out.
Yeah.
They kind of made a comeback, not unlike the obsession with serial killers. What, in the 90s? Like, sort of like Satanic Panic?
Yeah. So a thing I didn't realize is that you were actually interacting with two spirits in at least this kind of seance. So what they are calling the control here is Peter Sasha, is another spirit who is kind of guiding you into communication with the spirit that you are actually trying to conjure and talk with. So you need two spirits, not just the one ghost you're trying to get to, which I feel like does not often appear in sort of like seance-related media, but Pynchon's got it going on here.
It would be clunky in like a horror film to have a secondary spirit who's sort of helpful and cheery, doing the in-between with the demonic spirit. Not that Roland,
I only learned this because I had to look up what a control was in a seance, and that's it. Just a different ghost.
So we're in this sort of club?
Snoxalls, I believe it's eventually called.
Snoxalls. And there's a seance going on, and there's a sensitive flame burning in a gas lamp.
This is also like seance type stuff. You need a little very dim. This sensitive flame is sort of the most characterful character in the book thus far. It like hides and is like very personified and like ducks under things and dances around.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, it's not our main character. So as far as the seance is going, we have Carol Eventer, who is talking about, he is communing with the spirits about this quote-unquote realm of Dominus Blicero. Roland, who is the spirit they're trying to talk to, found that all signs had turned against him. Roland, too, became conscious of the wind. The wind is everywhere. These are the kind of things that he's poetically musing about.
There's an interesting passage about the invisible hand. A market needed no longer to be run by the invisible hand, but now could create itself, its own logic, momentum, style from inside.
Yeah.
You dispensed with God, but taken on a greater and more harmful illusion, the illusion of control that A could do B. But that was false. No one can do, things only happen.
I love this. No one can do, things only happen.
That feels very Pynchon.
Yeah.
Very Benny Profane.
Yeah, extremely Benny Profane.
And it also hits that everyone here is trying to work in some way sort of to predict these V2s. And this sort of undermines that, this thought that things only happen.
Yeah, and they don't have control over it. And the idea that control is actually more, the illusion of control is actually more harmful than an illusion of God.
The acceptance of fate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jessica is here. She's
throwing darts.
We finally get to the dartboard. She's like holding these darts in her hand, and like when it says brass throats and breasts warm to her blood, quake in the hollow of her hand, that's the darts, right? I assume.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
Believe so.
I tried looking this up because I was like, are these like terms of art that like professional dart players are like, yes, grip the dart by the breasts. That does not seem to be the case. I think this is just Pynchon describing the sort of like, I don't know, buxom shape of a dart.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's.
I can see it,
yeah.
I wanted to make sure I was on the right hand. She ends up throwing the darts and kind of interrupts Milton Gloaming, who is the statistician who's here taking notes on the seance.
Counting the words that are being said in the seance.
Yeah, He
trying to like...
He studies things like automatic writing and Ouija boards, and basically any time that someone is presumably coming up with linguistic phenomena not consciously, or at least apparently not consciously.
And then trying to give them sort of psychiatric classifications based on sort of word frequencies.
Yeah.
He's
invented a large language model.
Yeah. He's saying that if you plotted the frequency of a word against its rank with a logarithm, you should get curve. Or no, you should get a straight line, and then there are some curves they've found correlate to being schizophrenic.
A lot of curves in this book so far. Parabolas, logarithmic curves.
Paranoid curves, schizophrenic curves. Yeah.
I wonder if anyone's done this with this book. I'll look that up. I'll get back to everyone on that. If someone's plotted the frequency that all the words show up in here.
That could be a fun digital humanities project.
I was going to say, this is undoubtedly someone's digital humanities paper. It's 2 on the nose. So Gloaming, who is quote-unquote girl nervous, is talking with Jessica. We get a lot of emphasis on Jessica's body throughout these sections.
Yeah, we get the vibe that Jessica is kind of hot stuff.
Yeah. A lot on her clothes, a lot of her body in her clothes. And then we learn that her boyfriend, Roger Mexico, is in another room at Snoxall's chatting with Prentice.
And we learn sort of the chain of spy command here, where Teddy Bloat takes pictures, gives them to Roger Mexico.
No, he gives them to Prentice.
Oh, he gives them to Prentice. And then Prentice gives them to Roger Mexico.
Yeah.
But none of them really know, like they have slices of what each other is working on, but they don't really have a full picture of, like Prentice doesn't have a full picture of why Roger wants these pictures or why Teddy is taking the pictures.
Yeah, so I think we can return back to the relationship between Roger and Jessica that Prentice muses on here. But yeah, let's dig into this organizational bit. So for one, we have Prentice calling the SOE the gently bred maniacs. Very good, Captain, rattling sit reps, jolly good, and why not do it actually for us sometime at the club. Pirate wanted their trust. The good whiskey cured Latakia scent of their rough love. So Pirate wants to impress this like upper crust intelligence brass, basically.
Yeah, it seems like Pirate has a little bit of like a class consciousness. Like there's several references to him sort of being an employee, not actually being a member of the high class, and him wanting to sort of fit in or feeling out of place when he is sort of in a high class establishment.
Meanwhile, he figures that Mexico, quote, only now and then supports the firm's latest mania known as Operation Blackwing in a statistical way, because Mexico is also a statistician. And then he puts together that Bloat gives him microfilms, and then he gives the microfilms to Mexico, who takes it to the White Visitation, which houses a catch-all agency known as Pisces. So Pirate and Bloat are with the SOE. Someone is working, the firm, quote unquote, is working on Operation Blackwing. And through Pirate, the SOE gets these microfilms to Mexico, who works at Pisces, which is in the larger organization of the White Visitation.
Why would
Does that
we
sound right to y'all?
Why would we have needed a plot to show this? It's so straightforward. This all feels very Twin Peaks. Just this assault of like levels of like psychological and paranormal bureaucracy.
I mean, it reminds me, I've always, as a fan of Twin Peaks, and I liked the X-Files, even though it like freaked me out as a kid. Like, I love the trope of the kind of like spooky FBI of like, oh yeah, there's a lot of thoughts that one could say about the real world FBI, both now and in the recent history and not so recent history. But like, what if the FBI just like was really interested in like psychics and ghosts and stuff? That's juicy and fun.
In this case, the British CIA.
Yeah. I mean, the CIA was also interested in psychics and ghosts and stuff in real life for a while there. So, maybe it's still going on. But yeah, so Pisces is in the White Visitation. SOE is funneling them some information, and Prentice and Mexico are kind of the ends of their respective organizations that meet. And we're not totally sure what Operation Blackwing is, but that is organized under the Firm.
Yeah, and Pirate has some musings on kind of our observation that there's like a whole bunch of different competing intelligence agencies going on in London right now. He says Pirate wonders if Mexico isn't into yet another of the 1,000 dodgy intra-allied surveillance schemes that have sprung up about London since the Americans and a dozen governments in exile moved in. And then he kind of goes through his Pynchon-esque list of all of these different factions of different governments in exile that each have different sort of sub-agendas. Like they're all allied, but they have different sub-agendas that they're trying to pursue, some of which are domestic surveillance, like between different, for example, French groups, and some of which are kind of spying on other allies. And I feel like this was a little bit of an interesting picture of what was maybe the post-war time period. Like we're kind of in the wind down of World War II, and we get this snapshot of the different factions or spying surveillance.
Well, it's like
that's going to happen after the war.
It's like the Cold War is already happening.
Yeah, we're getting the transition.
Prepping for the Cold War. I mean, it says there's a sentence in which the German curiously fades into irrelevance, as I guess all these governments are now spying on each other and not trying to fight the war. They're sort of spinning their wheels and wasting time to an extent.
Yeah, and even Pisces is psychological intelligence schemes for expediting surrender, whose surrender is not made clear. So it's not necessarily, could be anti-German, but it could be anti any one of these other
anti-communist.
groups.
It could be, yeah.
Look, once you use the Germans as your pilot program for surrender, then you can get full funding and start getting everyone to surrender.
Your pirate program?
Your pirate light program that is going to go out because of an explosion.
The pilot light. Hey. Sensitive flame.
Okay, do we need to talk about anything else?
I think we could dive into Pirate's past relationships.
Yes.
So Pirate finds himself, as he looks at Roger, Mexico, and Jessica, he is sort of taken by a love for them both that, quote, asks nothing but for their safety. So he really cares about them and like wants them to succeed as a couple. And
it seems like Roger and Pirate are buds. Like that's,
yeah.
As far as
really,
Tantivy says he has no friends. He's got, oh, sorry, that's Slothrop.
Yeah, Tantivy says Slothrop has no friends.
There's so many main characters in this, guys.
But this gets Pirate reflecting on when he used to be in love with an executive's wife by the name of Scorpia Mossmoon, which didn't sound dissimilar to me from Oedipa from Crying of Lot 49, but
yeah.
Anyways, the names just sounded
I had the
same
same
to me
thought.
in a funny way.
I had the same thought, Dury.
What Pynchon likes these kind of like double surnames like Moss Moon and Owlglass and
yeah,
it's especially for mysterious women.
So Scorpia Mossmoon was married to Clive, who was a plastics expert. And so they were sort of situated in the Middle East.
Yeah, where Pirate, back in 1936, Pirate was 33, which means he's about 41 now. He was stationed east of Suez, places like Bahrain, not entirely having a great time down there until he meets Scorpia.
Did he meet Scorpia down there, or did he go back to London and meet Scorpia there while Clive was in the Middle East?
Let's see what in fact happens here. Yeah, I think it's incredible black and white Scorpia confirmed not a few piratical fantasies about the glamorous silken-calved English real world he felt so shut away from. So I think she is an English woman who is there, and she reminds him of sort of like being back home in England where all the pretty girls are instead of being stationed out here in the heat. Yeah, they got together while Clive was away on a troubleshooting mission for ICI in, of all places, Bahrain. So
but
I
if
think
Clive was away in Bahrain...
Yeah, is Clive away in Bahrain, or is Clive away and they're in Bahrain?
I think Clive is away in Bahrain.
I assumed that Scorpia came with Clive to Bahrain.
Oh, see, I thought they meant...
That makes sense. Yes. I think they're in the Middle East. This is the vibe I got the first time I read this.
Let's see here.
But then at the end, he leaves her at Waterloo Station. I thought they were in London, and Clive was coincidentally in Bahrain.
Yeah,
and he was like brought back to his memories of Bahrain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that would mean that of all places, because Clive was where Pirate used to be.
Yeah.
The symmetry of this helped Pirate relax about it some. Oh, they would attend parties. Yeah, okay, you're right. You are totally right. I think they're in London. Because I don't know that they would be attending a ton of parties in Bahrain.
Bahraini's love parties, guys.
Maybe
on the army base, but... Anyways, yeah, so I think he's back in England on leave or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, Pirate, the career soldier, was having a year or two's relapse or fleeing outside in civilian life.
That's right, yeah. So he comes back from Bahrain, meets Scorpia. How is this the part of the book that has taken us the most comprehension to figure out?
Well, I just feel like all the details of the plot are so kind of twisted into the imagery that we have here, but...
Yeah. So yes, we have established Scorpia, and Scorpia, I'm just realizing, isn't that like a constellation?
It is,
Scorpio.
as is Pisces. Scorpio
is a constellation.
Oh yes, of course. Scorpia is a character in She-Ra, Princess of Power. That's probably what Thomas Pynchon had in mind.
They have kind of a sad relationship.
They do.
Scorpia, I mean, Roger... No, not Roger, sorry. Oh, gosh. Ooh.
Pirate. Scorpia and Pirate.
Scorpia and Pirate Prentice. Like, Pirate is getting older. He feels like this is his last chance to find love. But he also knows that Scorpia is never going to leave her husband, Clive, because Clive is really rich and high status, and he is not.
Yeah, this goes... I mean, I think this is a good point to what you just said about his class anxiety.
Yeah. And so their whole relationship throughout the whole thing, Pirate feels... There's sort of this sense of advanced nostalgia.
Doesn't he wish against all hope that he could let the poor Western man's timetable go? But how does a man... Where does he even begin at age 33?
Yeah, so the army has kind of stolen his youth from him, I guess, and kind of spat him out. And then, as we know, he sort of goes on to become a spy living in this sort of like frat house of other spies. So he kind of resigns himself that he's not going to sort of find love or settle down or have a family.
He spends a lot of time masturbating and thinking about masturbation.
And then, as he predicted, his relationship with Scorpia comes to an end. I was a little unclear as to why it ended. There was this paragraph that talks about government hounds being on the track, drawing closer. The cutters are coming. The cutters and the sleek hermaphrodites of the law, agents who, being old hands, will settle for her safe return, won't insist on his execution or capture. So I was a little unclear whether, like, is Clive sending agents after them? Did Clive find out about their affair? Is the intelligence agency trying to recruit Pirate and detach him from Scorpia?
Yeah, I assumed this was Clive, like, calling in some private favors in order to muscle Pirate out of this relationship, is what I assumed. And then, I mean, this is maybe not an especially tasteful way of phrasing it, especially these days, but like the sleek hermaphrodites of the law, quote unquote, I assumed meant sort of like extra legal, either military or police working outside of the official bounds of the law, or like somewhere in a gray area of like private enforcers or private security.
So he has to say goodbye to Scorpia, and he concludes, guess I'll go back to the army. Which I feel like really connects to when we watch The Master a little bit.
Which you can hear
Very
about on
profane.
is a patron exclusive bonus pod.
People being sort of lost after they leave the regimented structure of the army and try to return to regular life, and they sort of return to wanting to have a quote unquote master.
Mm-hmm. And he sees a lot of himself for this reason in the plight of young Roger Mexico, who is, quote, going through much the same thing with Jessica, the other chap in this case being known as Beaver. And he feels an interesting kind of like ambivalence about this. He thinks, yes, he is waiting to see if it will end for Roger the same way part of him, never so cheery as at the spectacle of another's misfortune, rooting for Beaver and all that, he, like Clive, stands for to win out. But another part, an alternate self, one that he mustn't be quick to call decent, does seem to want for Roger what Pirate himself lost. So, like, part of him is like, looks at Roger and is like, this is going to break bad for you, bud. The Beavers and Clives of the world are always going to win. And then another part of him is like, but maybe you're different. Maybe y'all can make it out.
Does that bring us to the next episode?
Yeah, he leaves. Yeah, we talked about Waterloo Station. Scorpia and Pirate have some like violent sexual pirate roleplay at one point. Maybe like cementing the nickname here of Pirate. And then I think we can cut to 1.6. So my summary here is background on Roger and Jessica. Their meet cute was a V2 impact, and now they meet up in an abandoned house in a stay-away zone, quote unquote. This is another one of those sort of Pynchon. We have a main scene going on, but we're flashing back constantly to a different but very similar scene featuring the same two characters, where Roger and Jessica, sort of in the present, are driving to meet a fellow that we eventually learn is named Pointsman. Meanwhile, we are flashing back to the time that Roger picked up Jessica on the side of the road, and they also drove off in a car.
And they describe Pointsman as a vivisectionist?
Yeah.
Which is a person who experiments on animals?
Correct. But he's also a Pavlovian psychologist.
So I guess he experiments on animals to learn about psychology.
Yeah. Pavlov also, I mean, when we say Pavlovian colloquially, we tend to mean like the dog experiment with the bell ringing and the salivating. But before we get there, so first of all, Jessica wonders, why does he go out and pinch all his dogs in person? He's an administrator, isn't he? Wouldn't he hire a boy or something? We call them staff, Roger replies. And I don't know why Pointsman does anything he does. He's a Pavlovian love. So again, there's this like people orbiting around this bureaucratic nightmare of like, doesn't he have people to go nab dogs off the street for him, and apparently not, or he just likes doing it himself.
He doesn't seem very good at it. But
no.
Sometimes you got to get out of the.
certainly.
Sometimes you got to get out of the office once in a while.
Exactly.
I'm curious why he's interested in this particular dog.
Yeah. I guess we'll find out in the next episode about the dog.
Yeah.
Before we get there, Roger calls Beaver Nutria,
That's such a good joke. It's an
which I
insanely
thought was
good
funny.
joke.
I don't get it.
A
nutria
nutria is also known as a Russian rat. In North Carolina, is a very large rodent that sort of eats its way through coastline. They're a real problem in Ocracoke.
Oh, really? They look kind of like capybaras almost.
They're not whimsical like capybaras.
Perhaps a Midwesterner such as yourself is not familiar with the
I've
with
never
the
seen
noble
one of these
nutria.
before.
They're
They're giving kind of rodents of unusual size from the Princess Bride. ROUSs.
they're like an invasive species, and I think in the Gulf Coast they do like nutria roundups where you go out and like hunt as many nutria as possible.
Interesting.
Right in
That is
if
a funny
you're
joke.
from the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, if you've got experience with nutria
Really funny joke right there from Thomas Pynchon.
or beavers, I didn't realize that they're also in the UK. Like they're far more widespread than I.
Is that where they're native to?
I think they're native.
They seem to be all over. I don't know.
We call them Russian rats, but I don't know if that's because they're from Russia or not.
They're native to South America.
Of course, they're native to South
How'd they get to
America.
England? Ships?
I guess
Probably.
so. Yeah, same way they got to the North America.
Yeah, it says God, this heat map is not looking good for Finland on Russian rat populations.
How'd they get to Finland?
Wikipedia has a heat map. I guess they're from South America. They're also in Brazil. They're labeled as
Okay.
introduced in the United States.
Introduced to this from Wikipedia, where I assume we all are right now. This is the kind of content you come to Pynchon Pals for, is reading Wikipedia pages that you yourself could read. It's been introduced to North America, Europe, and Asia primarily by fur ranchers. So, yeah, I guess people want the fur, so they bring them so that they can breed and then get the fur.
They don't even really have that pretty of fur. They do look kind of like rats. They have an unappealing long tail.
They're not.
Well, that's why
Beaver.
if you're trying to make fun of a guy whose name is Beaver, you might call him Nutria instead.
Yeah. They're much less cute than a capybara. I didn't mean to throw capybaras under the bus like that.
No, I think capybaras have a real whimsical energy that the nutria doesn't
I think
have.
their lack of a tail is really working for them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I hope if you also didn't get that joke at home that you now think it's very clever and funny.
Yeah, now that we've gone out of our way to
Pretty good
really
diss.
unpack. Dear old Nutria, Beaver. Quite right.
Have we pointed out that beaver is also slang for women genitalia again?
Yeah, but I don't think we pointed that out.
We
but
should point that out.
yeah, maybe
That's what I
maybe
was
that
thinking.
is not. We do have a lot of international listeners. I don't know if that's that's definitely an Americanism. I guess also a Britishism.
Who's to say?
You could, if you throw a dart at any page on this book, you are bound to hit a vulgar slang for genitalia.
Yeah, I feel like this is sort of the most puerile of the Thomas Pynchon books we've gotten so far in the first 40 pages.
He didn't have to impress anyone anymore. He's like won awards for like V, and Lot 49 was a success. He's like, all right, now I can get dirty with it. It's the 70s, baby. He can write what he wants.
This sort of dialogue between Roger and Jessica feels very Rachel and Benny trying to push each other's buttons, like trying to get in a fight with each other.
Uh-huh. Did anyone else think that it was, speaking of sexual language, the section saying her hands reaching out, about to touch his shoulder, etc., can't get a decent argument going with her, how he's tried. At the bottom of that paragraph on our page 39, it says, he's wasted gallons of paint thinner striking his faithful Zippo, its charred wick, virility giving way to thrift, rationed down to a little stub, the blue flame sparking about the edges in the dark, the many kinds of dark, just to see what's happening with her face, each new flame a new face. Like maybe this is just coming off of all of the talk about masturbation in the previous episode, but like the Zippo, the rationing, the like the economic relationship between like sex and thrift and wartime, like even down to some of the way the language is used. That is an association I made here with striking.
Once again, we have a little pilot light that we're trying to keep lit.
So yes, they think of themselves in some ways. They're like psyches are sort of joined together in all of the darkness that they operate in before they separate again. They merge into a, quote, joint creature unaware of itself. But then we get their Hollywood, or, quote, what Hollywood likes to call a cute meet, which I've always heard is a meet cute. But maybe
I have too, but maybe that's changed over the years.
Yeah. Or maybe that's what they call it in England. I don't know. So Jessica back, I don't know, I guess, how long have they been together? If a rocket strike is their meet cute?
Few months?
Probably not that long.
Can't have been that long. Months, probably. She's on the side of the road with her bicycle. She has, again, speaking of Jessica's body, her ATS skirt hiked up on a handlebar, most non-regulation black slip and clear pearl thighs above the khaki stockings.
They have some flirtation.
Roger pulls over, your classic, like, need a lift?
Felt very Benny and Rachel as well. This sort of him driving up and then running her bike over. Felt very reminiscent of when Rachel blows through the trash cans.
Yeah.
Yeah, she asks, does your mother know you're out like this? And then Roger says, my mother is the war.
What a line.
Which he then sort of continually thinks about, and he's like, that might actually be more true than I'm willing to admit. And then all of a sudden, a rocket falls. Cute, writes Thomas Pynchon. And she just, like, hops into the car. Because why wouldn't you? There's rockets falling. Faster than sound. I liked this line, I'm in your power, she cries, utterly. And then immediately after, Roger thinks, but Jessica's not in his power. And the war, well, she is Roger's mother. She's leached at all the soft, the vulnerable inclusions of hope and praise scattered beneath the mica dazzle through Roger's mineral grave marker self, washed it, all moaning away on her gray tide.
And then we dive a little bit deeper into Roger's. We kind of flash back and forth between this, but Roger muses that he's only a statistician.
Yeah, the dour young man of the White Visitation. He feels like really set apart from all of the clairvoyants and mystics and weirdos who are part of the White Visitation. And he's like a guy who's good with numbers, and that does not necessarily endear him to any of his coworkers.
But it's a different way of telling the future. I think that's it's interesting that he's been lumped together with the psychics, that, you can connect to the spirits or you can use probability.
I think a thing that has stood out to me a couple times in this book is that we get these almost cinematic kind of jump cuts, oftentimes between paragraphs, but not necessarily in section breaks, where, for instance, Roger is thinking about statistics and the quote-unquote meddling into the affairs of invulnerable death. And then there's a paragraph break and it says, they have drawn near a glow over the rooftops. Fire service vehicles come roaring by them. It's like we're lost in someone's thoughts.
A reverie.
A reverie, like self-consciously thinking about their place in the war or in the bureaucracy. And then suddenly there's like a cut and we're back to the present where something is actively happening. And I feel like that is a move this book makes constantly. Or like we're following one character and then we'll suddenly be with another character in another headspace.
Yeah. It's a little difficult to read and track what's going on, but I feel like as a movie, it might actually be easier to follow.
Yeah.
It's like reading a book that's sort of styled almost like a movie. Although you have the interiority as well, which you don't necessarily get. Anyways.
I think it'd be hard to film this. I think maybe there's a reason Paul Thomas Anderson hasn't made the Gravity's Rainbow film yet.
There was a bit in here that reminded me of V, where Roger is sort of musing on his and Jessica's relationship to the war and talks about, is musing about, it's better together snuggled in than back out in the paper fire's khaki steel of the capitalized home front. That indeed the home front is something of a fiction and lie, designed not too subtly to draw them apart, to subvert love in favor of work, abstraction, required pain, bitter death, which reminded me of the sort of aversion to abstractions and retreating into abstractions that we saw in the whole sick crew in V. And I feel like is building on this sort of theme of turning to love as an alternative to the kind of endless war effort.
Yeah, well, I mean, this section ends with "they are in love, fuck the war."
Yeah, they found like I interpreted this as like sort of a bombed out house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the house isn't totally bombed out, but it is in a zone that I guess was heavily targeted during the Blitz. So it was evacuated back in 1940, and the government has said that you're not allowed to stay here because it is too close to, I guess,
the German side of London.
Yeah.
I mean, it is actively on fire though. So, right.
And it's under barrage balloons, which are very ominous looking.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you all looked up an image of those. But they're these sort of giant balloons with like steel tethers to the ground that are, I guess they make it difficult for bombs to target certain areas, and they also are difficult for pilots to fly around. But what an ominous landscape to be in, sort of like a bombed out, abandoned area under these like imposing balloons.
Yeah, but of course the balloons wouldn't save you if there were a rocket, because the rocket would just go through the balloon. The rocket doesn't need to navigate around the balloons.
Yeah.
Like a plane would, or like one of those. If the Doodlebug like V1 setup, it basically just looks like an airplane with no pilot, and so it could still get caught in like a balloon or something, whereas a rocket just falls until it hits the ground.
Yeah, so they built this kind of cozy little home where they bring some signs of life into this bombed out landscape, a fresh flower or two, some chickens, and they meet up there, and that's where they sort of have their affair.
Yeah, I like that Jessica, this is a quote, Jessica has brought an old doll, seashells, her aunt's grip filled with lace knickers and silk stockings.
It's kind of sweet.
It is. I think this is like a really tender moment. I think an interesting thing that is happening in this book is this relationship between the war and work, and like work for work's sake, and this like endless, on the one hand there's this sort of like bureaucratic nightmare that is trapping all of these people, and then on the other hand there is this kind of ceaseless physical toil of the war where, you know, even Roger is like, they're watching these fire trucks go and they're like, oh, something has hit. A year ago, we might have rushed over with the fire trucks and like tried to pull people out of the rubble. But after you've done that enough times, you realize that there might not be a point to it, or like they're either going to get out of the rubble or they're not, whether I'm there or not.
Where are we in the war? I mean, I know we're in like 1945, but do the Allies sort of know that they're beginning to win the war yet?
Yeah, I think they, the first, I think V2s were launched right after Normandy, because wouldn't that have been in the late summer of 44. So Allied troops are on the continent again. Yeah, okay, so D-Day was June 6, 1944. The V2s started in August and September of 1944. And we're in early 1945, I guess. So
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think it's interesting that like the war, there's maybe a sense, at least to some degree, that the war might be like a tide might be turning.
Yeah.
And maybe this war is going to come to an end, but we're seeing all of the sort of future wars or future Cold Wars or conflicts that might emerge after this war.
Yeah, I think actually this first part of the book takes place in late December 1944. So we're not quite to 1945 yet.
Okay.
I think it's also worth noting, my understanding, this might not be totally right, is that the sort of Battle of Britain, that was at the very beginning of the war, right? Like that was like 1941, I guess. No, that's when we joined the war. That would have been earlier for them because they were fighting before that. But then
Let's
I
look it up.
think
Battle of Britain.
I think they went through several years where London wasn't being bombed continuously because the RAF, regained air supremacy over England. So there was like a point where you were getting bombed by the Germans, and then several years where London could have been rebuilding somewhat, albeit I guess on starved resources. And now at the end of the war, as we're moving towards the end, Germany is once again shooting missiles into London.
Well, I guess, and the development here is that like you have German planes that are able to fly over London and drop bombs. And so the Battle of Britain is July through October 1940, which is the time that this stay away zone would have been evacuated, because it says this house was evacuated in 1940. So it's been sitting kind of abandoned since then, because it was, I guess, close enough for German planes to get reliably close by. Since then, there have not been German planes flying over, but they have been sending these doodlebug unmanned vehicles loaded with explosives. And then now, suddenly, they have the rockets.
Gotcha. The reason I asked that question is, to your point, Patrick, about the sort of relationship between work and the war. And I think there's this sense that the war maybe might have an end in sight, but not like the war more broadly speaking. Like this war,
not the work.
Not the work. The work isn't ending. This war might end, but we've created all these other structures and there's all these other enemies, and everyone has these surveillance organizations, and that shows it's only picking up in speed.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely something that this book is dealing with, or definitely Roger and Jessica are dealing with, because it's also, they're kind of able to carry on like they are in this weird sort of faux domesticity, in part because of the war. So like when some of this winds down, Jessica presumably is going to be tied more closely to Beaver, wherever Beaver is.
Let's give this house up.
Yeah, they're gonna have to give. Someone's gonna move back into this house.
They're gonna be like, "Why are there chickens in my kitchen or whatever?"
Why is there so much lingerie in here?
But I think this is also kind of an echo of Prentice's experience, where he was in, I guess, when he was in Bahrain. That wasn't World War I, was it?
He was there in the 30s.
In the 30s,
yeah. So he was there in the interwar period.
But he was in sort of the army, kind of tried to, even in the interwar period, there's still work to be done by the army, and you try to leave and then it just comes back. And so there is this, the war machinery continues even if the war ends. Yeah,
well, he stops the war. I mean, so we are told he stops the war in the Balkans by defeating the giant adenoid. So like he's doing stuff, he's stopping the war, but then there's still the coming war. There's more war always on the horizon.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, I didn't realize you were kind of a World War II history buff.
I wouldn't go that far. Well,
you know more dates in World War II than I do. Let me put it that way.
I watched a decent amount of the History Channel in middle school, and so we will
I
see
did
what
too.
sticks around.
I watched a lot of History Channel, but I feel like I did not internalize. The dates did not stick in my memory. I remember that I watched a whole History Channel show on Hitler's favorite juice was apple juice, and there was a whole assassination plot which involved an apple juice factory. That's the one.
That sounds like something that could come up in this book.
We'll see.
Yeah. Shall we move on to episode 7 of part 1?
Let's do it.
Episode 7 felt so V to me. Felt so those guys from V.
Very Looney
whose name I don't remember.
Tunes. Oh.
Porcupine and the other one. The one with the sun.
Goodfellow.
Yeah, not Godrolfi.
Not Godrolfi, the florist.
Godolphin. Episode 1.7, Edward Pointsman, Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons, is dog hunting with Roger in the ruins. He wants the dogs for experiments. His colleague, Spectro, at the Hospital of St. Veronica of the True Image for colonic and respiratory diseases, is, like Pointsman, a Pavlovian, and currently in possession of a very special book.
W. Pointsman, I assume, is a West Point joke. His name is...
Or a dog joke?
Like a pointer? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I could see either of those.
So
I just Googled a picture of a pointer. They're so cute.
So, yeah.
He's looking for a dog.
He's in the rubble, and he's got his dog net, and he's looking for a dog. And then he steps in a toilet.
They just, like, breed dogs like anyone else?
Doesn't it?
I don't understand why he's going to such effort to capture these dogs in, like, a war zone.
He needs them to be tainted by the war.
Yeah, my take on this.
For psychological profiling.
I was under the impression the dog lived in this house. Like, the dog is, like, returned to, if the house has been bombed out, but the dog is still there, that if the dog didn't die, he might be there. Animals have that, like, there's always those stories about animals surviving tsunamis and earthquakes and stuff. Is that maybe he's looking for dogs that got out of houses that got bombed?
Well, this is what
which I think
this is what Jessica is thinking about. Is like the dog is coming home and is wondering where its people went and when they'll be coming home. This is Jessica's perspective on this. Meanwhile, Pointsman is like personifying the dog. So the opening line, it takes a minute to kind of piece together what exactly is happening here, because the episode begins, tonight's quarry, whose name will be Vladimir or Ilya, Sergei, Nikolai, depending on the doctor's whim, slinks carefully toward the cellar entrance.
He has a memory or reflex of escaping into a similar darkness from an Irish setter. So, yeah, I guess he has sort of taken on the dog's persona.
Well, because he here is the dog, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's like taken on.
Yes, yeah, you're correct. So the Pointsman is imagining the psychology of the dog, who's a mutt who has some Irish setter in him.
And in pursuit, Pointsman steps into a toilet bowl.
Yeah. And boy, what a wacky scenario. You ever been hunting dogs in ruins and you step into a toilet bowl and
get
then
your foot stuck?
Sort of have a Looney Tunes-esque slapstick routine trying to get your foot out?
It's so funny that Pointsman gets pissed because I guess he thinks the toilet bowl is in such good shape that surely someone should have salvaged it from the wreckage. Reminded me of the section in V where they say the English are known for their plumbing acumen.
Just if I had a nickel for every time Thomas Pynchon brought up a pristine British toilet, I would have 3 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened 3 times.
Yeah, but he's sort of forced to hobble back to Roger and ask Roger to help him get this toilet bowl off his foot, and then Roger can't get it off his foot.
He's also wearing a balaclava through all of this, and it keeps pointing out that the only thing that Jessica and Roger can really see are his, like, eyes and a little bit of his nose poking out.
And for what reason? Like, they're chasing dogs, not robbing a bank.
Pointsman seems like a weird guy.
He does seem like a weird fellow.
You're in the Royal Academy.
Why is Roger associated with him again?
They all work.
Are they both in Pisces?
Yeah, I think they're all vaguely in some kind of intelligence.
Yeah, I think they're with Pisces, which means that they are both associated with the White Visitation, because Pisces is within the White Visitation, I think.
Gotcha. I feel like we have a very different portrait of spyhood here than in something like James Bond or something, where the missions they're on seem ridiculous and pointless, and it's hard to see the end game of where these missions are going to get them to. It's sort of all the unglamorous spy missions that we're seeing, and none of the ones where they actually solve anything or capture anyone, which is probably the truth of spy work, is that there's a lot of failed or ridiculous recon missions.
Well, we talked about the, U.S. government trying to do the like dolphin spycraft in when we were talking about
throwing
Lot
darts
49.
at the wall.
Yeah.
Seeing what sticks.
There's a bit, I had to look this up, where Roger, so they're stalking the dog with a bottle of ether that they're supposed to like pour on a sponge and, kind of knock the dog out by putting the sponge up to its nose.
Oh, I thought they were trying to attract the dog with the ether, and I was like, do dogs like alcohol?
So why don't you guys try peanut butter?
Yeah, like get a piece of chicken.
That would have been easier. They
makes a lot
just
more
knocked
sense.
him out with some peanut butter. They hadn't thought about that one
But
yet.
they're fumbling with the bottle, and they kind of forget the sponge part of the equation, and the dog is giving them the slip, and they can't get the toilet off of Pointsman's foot.
They sort of start to ether each other at one point. Just because they've got...
It's all very silly. But
it seems like for someone that works with dogs and consistently goes out and catches dogs, it seems like they know nothing about dogs.
Well, look, if he hadn't gotten his damn foot stuck in that toilet, this all would have worked out much easier.
Yeah. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. I think Muhammad Ali said that.
This dog is probably hungry. I feel like you just need to like bring a chicken leg and...
They don't got chicken? It's wartime. They're rationing.
Time.
Roger has a lot of chickens. That was his whole thing in the last episode.
Oh, that's true.
They seem to have forgotten that dogs run. Like...
They're worried about, or Pointsman is worried about upsetting the dog's psychological state. They need him as close to normative as possible. And then I had to look this up. So Roger yells, "Why, it's Mrs. Nussbaum." And then presumably Roger either speaking for the dog or imagines the dog saying, "You were expecting maybe Lessie," written in kind of like a Yiddishy dialect. So I had to look this up. Mrs. Nussbaum is a character on this sort of sketch radio show called Alan's Alley, which features... It's a segment of this radio program, comedic program, where like this guy is walking down the alley and like knocking on different doors in the alley and meeting this colorful cast of recurring characters. And one of them is Mrs. Nussbaum, who has like a very prominent, over the top kind of like Yiddish Jewish accent. And she is one of the recurring characters on this show.
Interesting.
Which is what is happening here. So like Roger is doing a little bit from this radio show as they are hunting the dog.
Pynchon loves a media reference.
In case anyone was wondering why the dog started talking, or
I just kind of rolled through that. I was like, we're
if you weren't listening to the radio in 1942, that reference might
have gone over your head. I was reading this and thinking that like, I was thinking about the experience of reading this book without the internet. And
there's an easy solution to that. It's B. Thomas Pynchon.
Yeah. I mean, I just wonder, like, did people reading this when the book was written have more of a memory of this time?
I think that's part of it, for sure.
Part of it. I mean, but some of it is very localized as well.
But also, if you are reading this in the mid-70s, you were not necessarily like alive and
Yeah,
culturally aware in the 40s.
Depends on how old you are.
Yes, if you were a young person reading this in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I was just thinking about that experience, that there's a lot here that maybe you wouldn't understand or would have to look up in an encyclopedia. I don't know.
You were looking all this up in an encyclopedia. There's no way you just wouldn't finish the book. It would just take absolutely too long.
Isn't that why this book didn't win the Pulitzer Prize that year? Because they were like, I didn't finish it.
I was still reading. Didn't make it all the way through. Well, I was also thinking that, I don't know. I was wondering if any of this stuff would get harder to find on the internet over the years. Like some of the media references, I kind of had to dig a little bit. Even the song Dancing in the Dark that's referenced earlier, when I looked it up, there's like 7 other songs called Dancing in the Dark that have come out. So I really had to kind of dig to find the one that was actually from the appropriate time period.
Like Bruce Springsteen wrote Dancing in the Dark in 1944. Like Courtney Cox was so young in that music video.
It's a really excellent pull, Andrew. Gotta hand it to you.
There's a lot of really old movies too that I just was like, is anyone going to be able to figure out what this movie is in 50 years?
I think the Pynchon secondary,
the Pynchon Reddit will just keep these posts, keep all these stuff just
media ecosystems,
around.
Ourselves included. This podcast ain't going anywhere. You'll be able to find this decades from now. Okay, they keep chasing the dog.
They keep chasing the dog.
Roger gets his, quote, snoot full of ether. Pointsman's balaclava gets turned around. Really should have seen that one coming. And then the dog gets away.
Yeah, they net each other on accident and then kind of roll down the rubble. Very funny.
Yeah, we keep bringing up Looney Tunes, but this is either like a Looney Tunes or like a like Three Stooges sort of sketch
vaudeville
here.
Sketch.
Yeah. So Roger offers like, well, we could keep chasing the dog. Like maybe we go find another dog. Pointsman says no, forget it, and decides to head over to meet his buddy Dr. Spectro. And Roger, this is where Roger starts to suspect that Pointsman might be kind of interested in like vivisecting him, Roger. He assumes that they are on roughly equal sort of rank footing within the White Visitation, but isn't sure about that always. Which I think is interesting that like no one even is clear on what the hierarchy is in the organization they're working for. Like, are we peers here? Are you giving me orders? Am I helping you as an assistant? What exactly is happening here? Why are we both chasing dogs in the middle of the night?
And Pointsman strides away, still with the toilet bowl on his foot.
Yep. Maybe he never gets it off. Some say Pointsman still has a toilet bowl on his foot today. This is another V reference, the Hospital of St. Veronica. And then we should just, maybe say here, like, what is the code for the rocket in this book?
V1, V2.
So, there's one way of reading this. This is just a sequel to V. This is V2, the book.
Wow.
Which I want to put that out there so that no one thinks we missed that one while we're talking about all these other V references.
We talked about the V2 in V being a V, one of the Vs.
We did. Yes. But now we have a whole book about the V2. This hospital I like this description of the architecture, that it is a lengthy brick improvisation, a Victorian paraphrase of what once long ago resulted in Gothic cathedrals.
But which in its own time arose not from any need to climb through the fashioning of suitable confusions towards any apical god, but more in a derangement of aim, a doubt as to the god's actual locus.
Yeah, so
so it's not building towards like a peak, it's sort of going out in all directions.
yeah, it reminds like it's like the Sagrada Familia or something where it's just like spindly out in all sorts of different networked directions, not necessarily, classically Gothic. But yes, there was a Veronica in V. There was some discussion of Saint Veronica, and this is Veronica of the true image. And I think Veronica, like, means something like true image, like the etymology of the name.
I guess it has to do with the veil of Veronica is a piece of cloth that bears the image of Jesus.
Yeah. Yes, vera icon in Latin is true image, that Veronica comes from. Kevin Spectro is there. Kevin Spectro has the book. There's 7 owners of the book, and it gets passed around between them, and the White Visitation is interested in the book, and Spectro currently has it. They're all dropping in to see the book. Or at least Pointsman is.
Interesting. Feels very secret society.
Yeah. I like that the White Visitation, if you're like listening to this book on audiobook or something, the White Visitation, unlike Achtung or Pisces, which are like acronym. Is it an acronym or initialism, Andrew?
It's an acronym if you say it. It's an initialism if you say, like CIA is an initialism. NASA is an acronym.
WASTE
is an initialism. Yeah, Achtung is a...
Right, so Pisces and Achtung are in all caps, like acronyms, but the White Visitation is always in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is maybe worth thinking about, I guess.
Yeah, what do we think that name means?
It sounds good. The White Visitation sounds like something... I feel like there's a distinction of reading like good fantasy or sci-fi and bad fantasy of sci-fi that's just the simple pleasure of how good the names are. Like, I think George R.R. Martin, say what you will about all parts of his writing, but he's really good at coming up with names for things. Like, The Night's Watch is a good name. King's Landing is a good name. The Reach is a good name. The White Visitation is a good name.
Yeah. Wonder if there's anything... I mean, we were just talking about kind of biblical...
There's got to be something going on. There's just no way.
There's the Christian Visitation, yeah.
Do we feel like we should break here? I know we've been going long. I know that that we said we were going to get the next 2 sections done. How are we feeling?
I feel like we could save them.
Okay.
I feel like this episode might be long enough. We are, as our reader suggested, letting the book dictate our schedule and not our schedule dictate the book.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
We're going to take you up on your kind offer
Matt.
to exonerate us of podcasting for a long time. So if you've already read ahead, congratulations. You have a little bit less homework to do for next time.
We thought that a 4-hour podcast might be too much.
So I will adjust the pages we're reading next time and subsequent times in order to accommodate the little movement back and forth. But
turns out Gravity's Rainbow, dense book.
Thank you for your patience as we navigate this book without any clear chapter breaks.
I mean, that's helpful. If we had 20 more pages of a chapter, we couldn't be like, and we're going to do the next 20 pages another time. It's actually very helpful that there's no breaks.
But this is, I think the next section has a lot of there's a lot of talking about big ideas that we will maybe appreciate coming to with fresh eyes and voices when we get back to it. Mm-hmm. Any final thoughts on this opening section of the book? How do we feel overall coming to Gravity's Rainbow?
I'm excited to see where this goes. I feel like it's bringing together some of the best elements from V and Crying of Lot 49, prose-wise.
Thomas Pynchon's greatest hits.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we have the cast of characters and the dialogue. that we were seeing in V, maybe combined with some of the prose that we saw develop in Crying of Lot 49 with these more stream of consciousness sentences, like
the lyricism,
playing with sentence structure. I feel like we're getting sort of the spy visual. We've got some of the Looney Tunes-ness and some of this like worldly, conspiracy stuff going on, but it doesn't feel, at least at this juncture, it doesn't feel super encyclopedic. Like, here's a fun fact I learned about Egypt. Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I think I'm interested to see what happens with the kind of like male gaziness of this book so far. I'm also realizing, and maybe this is why this is a white whale for many people, it's a tough read. I feel like it's easy to get lost. I think some of the qualities I was struggling with the Crying of Lot 49 are carried over here, but it's a longer book, so
carried over and magnified
here. So yeah, I think we'll have to take our time with this one.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I guess sort of we've just read like 1/3 of part 1 of this book. It'll be interesting to see as we make it through the rest of part 1. I mean, I guess we're going to start getting answers to some of our current questions about what is the White Visitation, what's going on exactly with Pisces and the Firm and Slothrop and Pirate.
What's going
and, like,
on in this book?
How is this all? I assume part 1 is setting this up for what is occurring in the subsequent parts, and so we're going to get some answers on how all these characters fit together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting if you look at the parts. Like, part 1 is fairly long. It's like page 180. Part 2 goes to page 282, so it's a little shorter. And then part 3 is a large section of the book. It is not until like page 630 before you get to part 4. So I'm interested to see what that, like, if part 1 is setting up a lot of dominoes and part 2 seems like a much shorter section, is the shortest section of the book. What is going on by the time we get to the big, meatiest section of the book? I'm interested in this organization. I also think I appreciate how weird this book is. This really feels like a little bit of Thomas Pynchon unhinged and unleashed in a way that I find extremely interesting. So I'm eager to read more of it, I guess.
Yeah. I had a banana for breakfast this morning.
Just a plain banana? No.
It was just a plain banana. I know. I have to escalate to incorporating it in more things, but I did have a banana breakfast.
And I bought those bananas at the grocery store because I was walking by and I was like, I can't explain why, but I got a craving for a bunch of bananas.
I was recently traveling in Brazil and I had a banana dessert that was phenomenal. There's a lot of banana things. It was sort of like a warm banana pie with a cinnamon ice cream on top.
Wow.
Oh, I love cinnamon ice cream.
It was so good. It was so good. We went back to the same restaurant later that week to get the same thing again. But it seemed like something that might be featured in Banana Breakfast.
It needs
a
Brazilian expat on the in SOE.
I'm kind of curious where this falls in like the banana timeline, because there was this whole ad campaign that had to come out about bananas because they were perceived as being phallic and like inappropriate for women to eat. And there was a whole advertising campaign that promoted bananas as like a wholesome food for women and children that led to the popularization of bananas, at least in America.
Yeah, I mean, we have like a whole geopolitical term related to bananas in the form of like banana republic. If we really dig into it, I'm sure that the political implications of this selection of fruit go well beyond just like it, like a rocket kind of is phallic.
Yeah,
you know
the idea
what I mean?
of like bananas being grown in Britain in a greenhouse on a roof is very, and
the British intelligence is just gorging themselves on bananas every morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, this is what's This is a different type of banana as well, right? Do we know about that? Do you guys know about this? My understanding is, you know how like banana flavoring doesn't taste anything like bananas?
Mhm.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it did, and then that species of banana was like completely killed off by a blight of some kind. I'll look into this for the next episode because I might be talking out of my ass. But my understanding is that the bananas we eat today like
Different
became
banana,
a thing in the 50s and 60s, and pre-50s and 60s it was a different type of banana.
I'm looking at something right now that says in 1958 they had to turn to a new type of banana.
So yeah, this isn't
So
even, we
this
don't
is
even
the
know
old
what banana breakfast was like. We can't even experience
Wow.
banana breakfast, guys. This is
What is that?
is what we're
What's
talking
that
about.
tweet that's like, I asked my dad who's an architect, why we don't build banana breakfasts like this anymore. He told me we don't know how.
I mean, we were just talking about like what does it mean to lose the media that Pynchon is referencing, is we've lost the food he's referencing. We can't even eat the banana anymore.
This is also undoubtedly someone's research paper on Thomas Pynchon, is the like food ways, the lost food ways and cultural symbolism of some of his food. People have forgotten to overload their fondue with kirsch. No one gets drunk off of fondue anymore. And it's because we
because of the cautionary tale that is the crying of Lot 49. It's the Dare ads of the 60s, but with fondue.
I do think we were deep in banana marketing, like the beginnings of banana marketing in 1940s to a broader population.
Is Gravity's Rainbow part of, I mean, I bought a banana because I was reading Gravity's Rainbow. Is it part of the banana machinery?
Yeah, we'll have to read 100 Years of Solitude to get the other perspective on bananas.
Thomas Pynchon was a psyop, but not for the CIA. Just actually for
Dole. And
just for Dole.
Chiquita.
Chiquita.
Yeah, Dole.
I'm
Dole
looking
was
at a Chiquita banana commercial.
Yeah, for Chiquita.
From 1944. Sort of maybe like a racial caricature of a banana.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds about right.
About
Are we
right
ready to wrap
40s.
up the podcast?
Yeah, I think we should wrap it up. Sorry, we got off on a banana tangent.
We're like, this podcast has run long. We should wrap it up. Y'all ever think about bananas?
Bananas.
Didn't we already do? Jeez.
We're just
45 minutes of banana pod.
Dominated by banana conversation.
Thank you. And we mean it this time. Thank you for listening to Pynchon Pals, especially if this is your first episode and you're hopping on with Gravity's Rainbow. We're usually a little tighter. But thank you to Andrew Tillett.
Thank you guys so much.
And to Dury Long.
Thank you so much
for joining me. If you like what we're doing here, we would love it if you left us a review on Apple Podcasts or on your podcatcher of choice. Actually, I'm going to read our most recent review. Because I liked it and I thought it was nice. And maybe if you write a review, we'll read out that one on the on air. This comes from Bailey, who rated the podcast 5 stars.
Thank you, Bailey.
In this month.
Thank you, Bailey.
And says, a delight. Great perspective and analysis from 3 charming hosts. Thank you very much, Bailey. The discussions are easy to follow and offer valuable insight to any fan attempting to navigate the wild world of Thomas Pynchon. I absolutely love this podcast. We appreciate your support and your review.
I'm glad she left that before this episode. I don't know if this is easy to follow or helpful.
But maybe it's charming.
So leave a review and rate us. That's a great way to help. Our next episode, we will be reading pages. Please check the show notes to figure out exactly what those are as I reorganize those. Sorry once again for the slight change in schedule. If you'd like to get in touch with the show or submit a question to be answered on air, you can reach us at pynchonpals@gmail.com. And to support the work we do here, you can head to patreon.com/pynchonpals. The Q&A podcast for that will be out probably late this month. We apologize for the delay in getting that out. Our recording schedule has been a bit of a mess for various life-related reasons. So
ever had your basement dug up?
Yeah, we appreciate your patience on that. It will be out sooner than later, and then we will let y'all know what the April episode is going to be. Our theme music is Horology by the inimitable King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, released under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives license on the album Polygon Dwanaland. If you pay attention at the beginning of the episode, you may even notice a kind of like a screaming sound effect. Perhaps this song was chosen intentionally. Way back when. Pynchon Pals is produced and edited by me, Patrick Fiorilli. You can find more of my work alongside my newsletter, Critical Theory Craft, at my website, www.patf.io. Do we need to come up with a new outro for Gravity's Rainbow?
Ba-na-na-na.
Is that like the end of a knock-knock joke? What was that?
It was the end of a knock-knock joke about bananas.
Do you want to just... we can make that the outro. Do you want to take that one from the top?
The joke?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that requires me to remember the whole
joke.
joke.
Don't remember the setup.
It has something to do with Bach and bananas.
Aren't you glad I didn't say banana?
What's Bach's favorite fruit?
What?
Banana. Is it Bach or Beethoven?
I'm going to let you sweat this one out.
Find out next time.
B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
Jesus.
Trying hard.
It's Beethoven, right?
It's Beethoven. I
yeah.
totally flubbed that joke. I thought it might just come across naturally, but it didn't. Like, it just might come across as a nice outro without the joke context.